So first on our agenda is approval of minutes of our prior meeting on March 2021.
I'll move approval of the minutes with some edits. And since I thought Scott was going to be on his trip yet, I wrote up the edits that I am offering and emailed it, so Scott has a copy of all these already. But I'll go through them for our discussion. In 5B, I would request an extra sentence added in at a place that I noted it in when I wrote to Scott. The line would add in to say, this is about the change in the zoning. And after the paragraph, I would like the line added, it is understood the Park Commission will be the initiator and will be in control of such a request. Next, on 5C, that's the library story walk. I would like it added that this sentence, commission members raise concerns of the bottom edge affected by water causing deterioration and of bottom box edges needing a drip edge. That's about those boxes in the McKee Park. In 5D, let's see.
Is it 5B?
That was the first was 5B. The library store walk is 5C. Okay, and then in 5D, that's the pickleball courts. And I am commenting on the agenda title that says authorizing acceptance of construction bid for pickleball courts at Fahey Fields Park. So my comment is, this is not actually Fahey Fields Park. I would like it changed to say Fahey Fields Western Addition to McGaw Park. And if you remember at a previous meeting, I mentioned that as a neighborhood park or such, it's not eligible for the same funds as a community park can get, like McGaw Park is a community park. And there may be another Fahey Fields Park farther over to the west in the Fahey Fields subdivision, so that would be confusing. Also, as far as 5D, the pickleball courts, both of the votes were roll call votes.
On which no?
That's 5D, pickleball courts.
Okay.
Okay. And then 6A, this is under communication. Just a little typo there. The word, it says contacts, it should be contracts with an R. And then another word in there, referred out and be on the park. I believe it says by right now, so BE on the park. Okay, and 6C, the Town of Madison report. There's a line there that says annexation of the town on October 30th, 2022. I would suggest it should read annexation of the town on or before October 30th because that's the legal contract deadline date, and it could happen earlier. The council has always said it could happen earlier if, I guess, they decide to. Okay, and then 7D, it says director's report, so that's redundant. Then, so that's the editing things. Then in 5A, and I want to get Sue's opinion on this also because Sue brought this up the first time. It mentions under 5A about Hugel Jamestown Park, and it also calls it H/J Park. And remember, we said no abbreviations, no acronyms, but I can see where there would be justification to use an abbreviation if the whole name, title, words are spelled out first. As an example, this might say something about Hugel Jamestown parentheses H/J parentheses Park, or even another version, something writing about Hugel Jamestown Park, comma, or H/J Park, comma, And then after that, something that explains that you're going to, shorten it to an abbreviation. Then from there on, it could be called H/J Park, just using that as an example. And those are my edits. Sue, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's efficient. Just as in standard writing protocol, if we define it once and we're using it more than once, we can just use the acronym afterwards.
Right, that's what I had in mind, yeah.
Yep.
And then, I don't know if anyone else has anything.
Any changes or other corrections, revisions?
Then it needs a second.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a second on the amended minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carried.
Sue, okay.
All right. Next is public appearances, and I'm not seeing any public appearances. Anybody on Zoom?
Can I have ask a question to the Park Commission?
Who's speaking here?
That's Julia.
This is Julia Ratafrata.
Now I see you.
Do you see me?
You got the floor. It's yours.
Okay. So, no, I want to ask a question to this committee about the, I don't know if you have noticed in Fitchburg Road, they have removed a lot of tree in the pines. And I want to know if this committee was aware of that. I don't know, you have a subcommittee dealing with tree committee. So you are aware of that, and the city have received any complaints of, and my question is if there is any plan to replace all of those trees.
Scott?
I can respond to that, Julia. Those were all ash tree removals in the Pines development. And actually what we did do is we reached out to David Gevers and the management there to give them a heads up that we were going to be doing that. And prior to that, because typically we kind of designate trees that are maintained by the city are typically between the sidewalk and the curb. But these trees were on the outside of the sidewalk. But we were able to confirm through a survey that they were all of our trees. So we did reach out to them and let them know that we were going to remove them. And actually it does kind of provide a service to the Pines where the city used their resources to remove the trees. I know Anna has been in working with David Gevers, certainly through the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative. At times, there's beautification applications and things that can be submitted. So I think they were working on potentially submitting a grant application. But even beyond that, certainly we want to try and replant those areas. The thing is, there's just not adequate space between the sidewalk and the curb. So I know we're trying to work with the Pines to try and replant that area.
Is that a question? Do you have a question for her?
There is also trees in the center median, and a friend of mine complained to me about cutting down the trees in the center median. And to one of your questions, no, that has not come up before the Park Commission. So were you talking about median or terrace trees or out on the outside of the road?
I was talking about the tree that they were close to the building.
Okay.
Yeah, they're between the side. They're median trees between the side, or not median. They were terrace trees between the sidewalk and the curb, but they weren't between the sidewalk and the curb.
Some of the ornamental trees have reached their life, which is about 20 years.
They were ash trees, and they were infested with the emerald ash borer, so they were dead. So they needed to be removed.
And there are some quite mature trees that were being removed because it's going from a sidewalk to a bike path. So they need the extra 5 feet to move the wall over, the retaining wall over by the apartments, that is. So it's unfortunate, you know. I hope the plan is to put some nice trees back in there.
I have a question, Mark. David?
For the speaker?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, so we have the service trees and we also have the trees in the median. What is the plan for the median trees being replaced?
Yeah, I can't answer that. Can you, Scott?
Yeah, we're taking a look at the space that's available and whether it's viable to get the trees replaced. It may not be viable to replace the trees within the street right away, so that's where Anna is working with the managers of the development to see if there isn't a different way to try and replace the trees, not on city property, but on private property.
Again, I think the trees in the median are distinct. I think the city goes backwards when they take out the trees in the median, and I'm not sure what the purpose is in terms of the improvement of the road.
As I mentioned, Dave, the trees were infested with emerald ash borer and were dead, and they were.
In the median? I'm talking about the median.
Oh yeah, I don't know about the median.
Well, I'm talking about the median, please.
Yeah, some of them look like pretty healthy trees.
I can add a few things that I recall, do you have a minute? One of my first meetings late 2019 or early 2020, we had an annual report from the Trees Commission, the Tree Committee to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And there, just an individual from that committee had said she'd gone to all of the Fish Hatchery Road improvement meetings just on her own, but because of her interest in trees. And she said that at every rendition of the road improvements project, there was less and less room for trees, to the point at which the only way to make all the improvements that were planned was to remove all the trees. And then the part of the road, the widening of Fish Hatchery that's already done, I don't believe there's any plans to put any trees back in because it's too narrow. And the idea was that they're going to plant pollinator gardens, which my criticism of that, and of course it doesn't mean anything, is that you're just planting pollinator gardens for those pollinators to get run over by cars pretty regularly. Now, as far as this newest section of the Fish Hatchery Road, they cut down 39 mature trees, none of which that I could tell, maybe there was 1 or 2 ash. And we'll see how it finishes up, but somehow the improvements resulted in all the trees being disappeared. And I don't know if they've got room to put anything back in once they're done. So someone else, maybe Public Works, might be able to answer that last part of the equation.
Well, Scott, is it possible just to get a landscape plan from the engineers that are doing this project? I'm sure they got one.
So we're talking about the medians on Fish Hatchery.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could.
from top to bottom, really, because,
Sure.
Some of those medians are just filled with concrete, but there are some areas, and I'm not sure what they're gonna do with the terrace. There could be trees put in there too.
I could write that down. Sure.
Yeah, that'd just be helpful.
Since they're in construction now, the plans for this southern half of Fish Hatchery that they're doing this year must be finished and set. I would guess, I haven't looked in details at the plans, but I would guess that the southern part of Fish Hatchery is gonna look a lot like the northern part of Fish Hatchery that was done last year.
Well,
And I did drive along there once, kind of looking, and I didn't see any trees in the median in the northern part. I think there was a lot of concrete
ground
in the center
plantings.
median, and then there were some wide areas that had some plantings of some sort. But I don't think there was any trees put in the northern half.
I hope you're wrong, but I'm not so sure that median, but, terrace, I mean, Madison places trees in some pretty narrow places too, so I don't know.
Yeah, you would think the terrace on the side of the street would have more room.
Yeah, right. But let's just see what they got. They must have something on their plans, I'm sure. So, yeah. Is there any other speakers for us, either on the Zoom program? There's nothing here in this room here, so if hearing none and seeing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting. Move on to review and approval of the agenda. We need a motion and a second.
I'll move approval of the agenda as written. I don't see any reason to change
Sure.
anything.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. And we are down to item 5, which is discussion of action items. And first on our agenda is a resolution R7521, a resolution to declare community park designation for North Fish Hatchery Road Hub Project. Scott, you can open up that and
Sure, and this was an item, as you recall, that came before the Park Commission earlier this year, and Wade Thompson, who's online here to answer any questions that we may have, put together a memo, a report that kind of delineated the planning process and what we worked on for this park. And why we're justifying the classification of a community park designation. I will note, and Patrick, you kind of mentioned it before, certainly one of the advantages or one of the benefits of receiving this designation is the ability to use fee in lieu of parkland dedication to develop. But again, it as Wade discussed and indicated, it really wasn't our intention to, design the park to make ourselves eligible for this funding. It's kind of one of the byproducts of it. It certainly is a park that we've got features that are community type park features, actually that are identified within our park and open space plan under the amenity chart for a community park. So I know Wade is here to answer any questions that the Park Commission may have. But again, this was, and actually Julia, Alder Julia Radafrada, who's one of the co-sponsors of this resolution, is available too if there's any questions. And certainly if they had anything that they wanted to add.
Wade, do you have any additional comments to what Scott
No,
said?
no,
Okay,
nothing to add, just here to answer any questions.
okay. Scott, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, until recently, this idea of what are the community parks and therefore eligible for this above all fund that can be used for community parks was a kind of a block that McKee and McGaw were the only ones that were considered community parks, and the community park dollars could only be used there. And it seems like recently that has opened up quite a bit with the golf course and the dog park and the hub. And there's something about Dunn's Marsh or something later on here. So what's the criteria of declaring something to effectively, what we're doing here is changing something to be a community park, and who actually decides this? Is it a council, city attorney, some law?
Well, and again, Patrick, this is a new park.
Right.
So I think certainly the Park Commission would have the prerogative to identify it per the Park and Open Space Plan amenities, which has some criteria in it.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just wondering how this is decided, because before it was like, oh, no, it's just McGaw and McKee are the only community parks. That's where dollars from
Yeah. I think it's,
Funds can go.
yeah,
Now, we got a bunch of community parks.
yeah,
or
and
consider-
I think it's the park commission
Okay.
with a recommendation to the common council. The common council will make that final determination,
Okay,
but I would think that would be the process that we go through.
okay.
Chair, can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So what, if you have read the resolution, is, what we want to do is to add this part of the park to the 9 Spring Golf Course. That is a community park, because they are in close proximity, is, crossing the street, and the idea is to annex, say, this part of the land to the community park that is already there. Like similar was done with where the pickleball court are in the Magog Park, something similar to that.
Yeah, I understand the purpose of the designated as community park, but I think the reality is community, meaning Fitchburg, will probably not identify it as a community park in the sense that it's not centrally located, and it's really designed primarily for that part of the city.
Can I make another comment?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe Wade can also make some additional comment regarding that. A community park is a park where it means that it brings people from different parts of the city because they have unique elements or components that other parks don't have. And they are not going to be only, this park is not only for that part of the city, but this is what it's going to bring some unique elements that are going to attract people from different parts of the city. So this is what is the concept of a community park. And this hub, phase 1, is going to have some of those components that you can see in the design concept that is attached and the document that are attached to this resolution. So, so that one is one of the, one of the meaning of what is a community park. I don't know, why did you want to?
I guess I just want to add, from the inception of this planning project, we have framed it as a park that will serve the neighborhood, but also attract the community. If you look at where this park is located, it's in our most heavily trafficked corridor, a very important part of our city that maybe isn't centrally located, but essentially serves as the gateway to our city. So again, we really plan this park as kind of a centerpiece of that corridor, serving both the neighborhood and the broader community. So again, that's the goal of the project. Whether in reality, the community will be drawn there, that will yet to be seen, but the features that we've created in the concept plan, namely, a unique bike feature, a covered outdoor recreation area, a four-season shelter with restrooms, potentially a water feature. These are all things that we think, again, our hope is to attract the community. That's really the goal of the project and the broader initiative. So that's, I guess, just
From a planning standpoint, though, don't we usually cite community parks in an area that's, 3 to 5 miles in diameter approximately? Well, half of that's in the city of Madison. I mean, that's why I was saying, I don't see this ever being identified by Fitchburg citizenry as a community park, although we're designated it as is. I don't think it will be by
Yeah,
the
can I make a
majority of the
comment?
people who live here. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, the golf course is considered a community park. So, and this piece of land is going to be, the idea with the resolution is to put this piece of land be part of the golf course. So, and the others, so that one is, when you say that the 3 radio miles and it's going to be close to Madison, well, the golf course is a community park, has the designation. So, so I don't see what is a big issue.
I'd feel
Just
better if Matt
from
is
a planning
paid for half of
perspective
it.
too, you know, we don't have criteria for citing community parks in the middle of the city. I mean, I imagine as the city grows, if we grow down towards Oregon, you know, to the east, we're gonna be on one side of the city, and I imagine we're gonna try to develop community parks in that area. So those won't be centrally located. That's just a fact of our city's geography and our planning areas. But yeah, certainly point taken from Mark.
Are there other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Anybody
I
up
mean-
there first? Nope.
Oh.
Patrick?
Yeah, to Mark's point, it does say in one of the paragraphs right here, it says, community parks are intended to serve persons within a large area, 2.5 miles, and provide facilities in addition to those provided in area and neighborhood parks. But like Wade is saying, it's just the way in Fitchburg that things are. It's not ideally spread out in the center of the city or something, so we're just working with the way that the geography of Fitchburg is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me, okay, so the other comment that I want to make is, even though the golf course is considered a community park, the community, in order to use the park, need to pay to play golf, okay? There are not too many amenities in that part of the park, the golf course. So this is why it's important to bring this. If we bring the hub as a, incorporate part of the golf course, it's going to bring all of these other elements that the community in general can enjoy and can use the park. Because right now, the golf course is limited. You need to pay to play. So this is another thing that I want you to also have in your mind about this community park, the golf course, and how this piece of land is going to be a complement and bring that those elements that the whole community can use free.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, David.
David, you're muted. You're muted, David.
Yeah, David?
David, you're muted.
Does he hear us?
David, are you there? You're muted.
Sorry, okay. I'm,
Oh, you mute yourself again, David.
We're probably losing a little bit of your audio.
okay, how is this?
I can hear you.
Okay. Recently, there have been articles in the newspaper about developments at the Glenway Golf Course. Wade, are you familiar with those?
Generally speaking, yes.
And what is the concept? Please express it as you understand it.
Basically, all I know is that I believe that it's private donations or private funds that are being used to improve a public golf course. What the specifics of that are, I have no idea.
Well, let me add something. My understanding is, and it may not be correct, they're working with a nationally known landscape architect to introduce what would be a native landscape. Number two, they're going to do time sharing on the golf course, such that there will be times when the public will be able to use the pathways in the golf course as part of a loop and a natural experience. So to me, it's a very interesting concept, and I would encourage you and Scott to understand what they're doing, and perhaps this is something that might be applicable to the Nine Springs Golf Course.
Yeah, and to that point, David, as part of the hub planning process, we did do some high-level golf course planning improvements, increased public access. That wasn't funded. Not to say it won't be funded in future years, but we do have some ideas that we hope would be improvements and would increase public access to that course.
A public access in terms of a timeshare in which it would sort of act as a park when people wouldn't be golfing?
We kind of talked about some open hours. Certainly, we have a 10-year lease with an operator that may have some issues with that. But we did discuss, yeah, again, just trying to open up the golf course to the broader public. Nothing was solidified. Nothing's been funded. But yeah, we did explore those sorts of ideas.
Well, I would encourage you and Scott to keep up to date on the development. I think it's extremely enlightened. I think it lets and is based on a standard of using public space, natural areas for other than just solely somebody who's playing a round of golf. And so this is not something, in my understanding, it's something in which it's very sophisticated from a landscape concept and a natural aspect. And secondly, it's to encourage the public to use that area and not just for playing golf.
And maybe an additional comment, Dave, which really kind of goes to an additional reason for a community park designation is we envision Nine Springs as a kind of a winter type of park with sledding hills, and actually, as part of the hub phase 1 project, we're looking at a sheet of ice for winter skating and those kinds of things. So certainly, the use of the golf course incorporated with uses in hub phase 1 to have activities during the winter are in our thoughts, that's for sure.
Okay, that's excellent. The first I'm hearing about it, I think that's great.
Yep, maybe I'm a little redundant. I have some difficulty hearing some of the comments, but we're not including this golf course as part of that park, are we? I mean, that's,
Well, in the idea that it's contiguous to it, so certainly as the park on the north side develops, we want to, make sure that they, communicate and cooperate, and it does provide some additional wintertime activities for the city, which would draw, those would be our only, at this point, winter designated activities in one of our parks.
so
And just,
the answer is,
just to add on to that, one of the goals of the planning process, again, we have a north side of Traceway and a south side, was to really make sure that whole plan was for the entirety of the site, and that there was a connection between north and south. So I think, again, that lends itself to the idea of that whole hub being, serving the community.
so the answer, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I was curious, Scott or Wade, if you could give any historical information on how parks are dedicated to be community parks. So I know the lure is it's supposed to be drawing from a wider area to be designated a community park. And I do think the hub falls within that. I just don't know, is this the standard events, like a calendar of events where it's deemed a community park and then the facilities come, or is it usually that the facilities are brought and then it's deemed a community park? I'm mostly curious as to if this designation would eliminate the Parks Commission's insight into the developments of that park once it was deemed a community park, or if you could provide any insight into kind of how it's been handled in the past.
I could try, Wade. And I don't know if we've had this type of a situation before in the past. Certainly not since I've been here, Sarah. But with the concept of the phase 1 of the hub project, it really, those amenities and those concepts, which I think are a little bit beyond the concept, they're kind of the amenities that we're looking to plan, are looking to have in that park. So I think at this point, it certainly makes sense that with those amenities proposed, and we want to try and make that park classification as soon as we can within the game. And I think it seems to be flowing pretty well as far as the amenities that are included in the concept, meet the requirements as they're identified in our park and open space plan.
Patrick?
Sarah, why do you think that the Park Commission might lose our oversight based on the designation, if that's what you were saying?
I was mostly just curious if there was any historical example of how this had been done, because I just don't know as to thinking through as to like for in the future, if we continue to designate land as a community park before the concepts have been completely approved and are set to move forward, I don't know if that opens us up to any type of risk. So it was more of just trying to understand how it's been handled in the past and if it was any type of precedent that we would be setting that would be potentially risky of having a designation before a final plan. And I completely agree with what Scott's saying is that I'm excited about this development and I think it is more, it's further than a concept. I just didn't know if there were any risks of having a designation before kind of the final park was brought forward, thinking through to the future if this became a repeatable activity. That's kind of it.
Is that the idea of, do we designate it as a community park first and then put the facilities in to fulfill that designation? Or the other way around, if you put facilities in first and then say, well, that's good for the whole community, so let's change it to be a community park. Is that what you're saying?
And I don't know. That's I'm like
Sure.
this feels like a new. I don't think that these community park designations happen that often. So I just was trying to learn as to what the best process is to set us up for success in the future if it's something that happens again.
Yeah, and that was partly my question at the beginning, because like I say, up till recently, it was McGaw and McKee. Those are our community parks. That was it. But we've opened it up to several recently. And so, yeah, it's kind of, I was just questioning, kind of in the same way, are we in violation of something somewhere that is going to say, well, hey, wait, you're going too far. You're doing too many community parks all of a sudden. I don't know what, if there's any laws anywhere that regulate this, or park jurisdiction kind of things.
Could I just chime in on that?
There is
Or-
one
or-
thing.
Wait, go ahead,
we,
finish your comment.
we probably, if we call something a community park and then plan to put the facilities in, we better follow through on the commitment to do that.
Yes, and I guess I'm just going off of the community park definition that we have. That is, I believe, clearly defined. Well, as clearly as we can get it defined within our parks and open spaces plan, where it talks about how it should be drawing people from a large area and offering kind of different types of facilities, like Wade had said. And just it does say that community parks should range in size from 50 to 100 acres with a standard of 5 acres for every 1,000 people. So I just don't know if we're following this definition and how loose we want to get with these designations. That I agree, like I'm excited about this park. I just was trying to learn more about the process.
Well, we do have a definition on paper. It's just, I'm not certain what it reads, but, yeah, Wade, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the parks plan, we do have kind of a table that talks about a desirable size and a desirable amenity list for our various types of parks. Generally speaking, the desired size for a community park is larger than what we're talking about here, but there's no requirement that says it needs to be a certain size. Similarly, there are, again, desired amenities, but not required amenities. Again, I think what we're talking about here is amenities that would serve the community. Maybe the size a little bit smaller than normal, but South Fitchburg is more suburban, North Fitchburg is more urban. So if we want a community park in our urban area, we're not going to find 50 vacant acres of land. It's just not going to happen. And then, to Sarah's other point, I think generally speaking, in talking with Scott, we don't have a formal standardized process for saying this should be a community park here, and this should be an area park, and this should be a neighborhood park. Certainly moving forward, if the commission or the council wants to standardize that stuff, I think from a planning perspective, that makes a lot of sense. And to that point, in the parks plan, we do have an action item that talks about just that, really looking at that hierarchy of neighborhood, area, and community parks, and maybe putting some more meat behind, what that means and where those could be. So I guess long story short, it's a pretty loose process from what I can tell for our current parks plan. But certainly if this discussion leads to an interest in tightening some of these concepts up, from a planning perspective, our department would be supportive of that.
What if for some reason the facilities that were identifying for that weren't approved for financial reasons or whatever reasons it would be, but I think that's kind of what Patrick was alluding to was, are we putting the cart before the horse, or does it even matter, or, what?
As Sarah was saying too.
I guess I'm directing it more toward Wade or Scott. but-
Again, from a planning perspective, I tried to outline the goals of the project, and I hope I did that. At the end of the day, from a planning perspective, honestly, if the city is not comfortable with calling it a community park, that's the city's prerogative. Staff will still proceed with the original goals to serve the community unless we're directed otherwise. And again, to Scott's point, calling it a community park, if that's what it is, and I would say that's what the hub is being planned for, that opens up some other funding options. But again, at the end of the day, if there is an interest in calling it a community park, we still want to make a park up there that serves the community.
Yeah. Is there any opportunity in the future, because there's so much vacant land and those apartments seem to be disappearing, of even adding to that park?
Yeah, again, nothing concrete, but from a staff perspective, and Scott and I have discussed this, if there's an opportunity to add onto the park, going to the east towards Fish Hatch on the north side of Traceway, I think from a staff's perspective, that would be ideal. Similarly, there's the tennis courts on the south side of Traceway Drive, which we've also been in discussions with the landowner about potentially acquiring. So yeah, I don't think, whatever size park we're talking about now, certainly if there's opportunity in the future to grow that park, that's been in our planning process as well.
Okay, any more, Scott? Patrick?
Yeah, I certainly agree that this hub is a community draw for everyone. And it sounds like it's just up to us, so it seems fine to change the designation or call it, or, add it onto our list of one of our community parks. Probably if we go too far somewhere and say some park like Nevin Village Green has a unique flower garden that everyone in the city is going to want to come to see, that may be stretching it too far, but yeah, this certainly seems like a community draw for everyone.
Susan?
Hi, a question and then comments. Comments first. I do see the logic of what's being done here. It makes sense. It's an area that was first developed where requirements for park space were not as nice as they are currently. And so it's a densely populated area. And so I don't think there's harm there. And there's communication, as far as I understand, between City of Fitchburg and City of Madison and the Madison School District, because there are other parks and Leopold School nearby. So there's an effort to not duplicate things as they're developed or to create structures that complement each other and just aren't duplications. So I just think in general, it's something that is overdue, and I appreciate that it's being done. At the same time, in the future, in other areas, I do think we should really be careful and know upfront what we're doing and how we're serving the community. I'm assuming here, there were studies done to understand the population, how many young people of various age groups, et cetera, live right there, from census information perhaps. So in the future in other areas, because there has been talk of community parks in other areas, the Parks Commission or our city's planning department should, I would hope, be talking about what other parks are in that same region, whether they're in the city of Madison or the city of Fitchburg or Verona or wherever we're talking, and be more broad in our definition of parkland available to citizens of that region. And then also just the other caveat that the more community parks you add, it's still a limited amount of funds. That's my question, correct? It is still a limited amount of funds, and the more we designate community parks, the less there is to go around. Is that right?
Well, these funds are only eligible to be used for community parks, so they can't be used for neighborhood parks or area parks, so the funds that
right,
were.
That's
what
not my
she's asking.
question.
Oh.
My question is just to say that X number of dollars are available right now for our community parks, and we're adding one or adding to the size of one. So with this project aside, in the future, if there are more requests or more plans to designate another community park or parks over time, that's now we would have 5 community parks, 6 parks, 7, but the amount of, that doesn't mean that the amount of money multiplies by 5, 6, or 7 to equip and manage the parks. So I hope that question is more clear.
Certainly.
Can I
and-
answer some of the question? Can I clarify? Or you want to do it, Scott?
I didn't hear it. What?
Who do you want to let speak? Scott or?
Who's asking to speak here?
Can I speak, Chair? This is Julia.
Go ahead.
So first I want to clarify something that one of your member, Patrick, mentioned about that we have plenty of community parks. We don't have plenty of community parks. We have 3.
Didn't say that exactly.
Well, we have Mackey, we have Mago, and the golf course. They are the 3 ones that
And the dog park too.
I mentioned that, okay?
All right.
Okay, so this one I want to clarify. And since I have been in council, we have never done, they have been the only 3 parks that I remember for a long time. Second is, Sue, regarding your question, the other, this, if we assign this parcel community park and is part of the golf course, that fish hatchery corridor is under development, and the idea is going to bring more development to the area, that we can use some of those park fee for this park. When the fund that can be used in community parks, only you can use those park dedication fee if you're going to bring a new amenity to a community park. We cannot use those funds for maintenance of the park, repair of the park. We cannot use those parks. Those ones are other type of park fee to fix those in. But there are a lot of regulation on how to use those fees. It's not like if we want to use it in my, I want to give you an example. For the inclusive playground, we can use some of the funds because the inclusive playground is a different type of feature that is going to, a new amenity, a new feature in the community park. But if we say we can, I don't know, we want to, repair some of the siding of the shelter in McKean Park with those funds, we cannot do that. So there is a lot of restriction on how to use those park dedication fee. It's not like we can use it whatever we want. So that one I want to explain you guys that there is a set of regulation on how to use those park fees.
Who did?
And
Okay, Scott? Go ahead. Or Chris, excuse me.
yeah, I was just gonna say, to piggyback on Alder Radafrada's description of how that works. This particular park, and it's going to be phased in such a way, and it's going to have a lot of amenities being added over time, not everything all at once. Having those fees available for this park could be really beneficial because, I haven't had the plan in front of me super recently, but from what I remember, it includes quite a few different features. And these fee in lieu of parkland dedication funds could go a long way in bringing all those features to fruition. So I think that's a pretty strong reason to advocate for this being designated a community park.
Okay. Any other comments? Oh, Scott, did you have none? Okay. Well,
Well, we could use an answer to Sue's question. I mean, like Sue said, the more and more community parks that we designate, the dollars available is a set X dollars. If we turned all 45 city parks into community parks, the money gets really thin to each one. So how's the park dedication balance doing?
It's doing fine, and certainly as future development comes into the community, there's potential additional dollars that could go into this parkland dedication fund.
And I would just add from a park planning perspective, I mean, we're not gonna plan for 45 community parks. I mean, I understand the point, but certainly, that's, before we even talked about what this hub could look like, we looked at maps and geography and lack of park and rec options in the area, and that's why we came up with a community concept. If I imagine in Fitchburg's history, in Fitchburg's future, there will be additional community parks, but again, I think it'll be a strategic, thoughtful, and comprehensive approach. And certainly, again, if the commission or council wants to codify some of that in language to quantify that, that's certainly an option too.
okay. Well, for the sake of moving on, I can't think of anything else we could cover on this. If there's a motion and a second for this resolution R 7521 to designate it as a community park, you're supportive of the resolution, you should make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R 7521.
A motion and second.
I'll second.
Second by Chris. Okay, voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carried.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't jump in the communication.
Yeah, I saw your hand going up right when I said that, so I
Sorry.
didn't know.
No, I would say, I do like the idea of putting more of a definition around it just for the future, just because it's a special designation, and I think that this park completely meets that requirement, but I do like the idea of just having a clear guide to help us, I guess, in the future, just knowing that Fitchburg is growing and that's great, but it is something that I think that could really be beneficial in the future, that if that's something that could just kind of be considered, I think that would be nice.
It's an identifier, it gives it more weight, I guess. Everybody's gonna have their own opinion until this thing is really built out in the manner that the spectators think it's going to be. So, yeah. All right. Let's move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. 5B is a 5-year park and open space plan update. Update is the key word here. Scott, you wanna?
Well, and what I'd like to do tonight is to, make an official action that the Park Commission is in the process of updating the 5-year park and open space plan. It certainly, I did include in your information, the last plan was adopted in May of 2016. So with it being April 2021, it is time to begin that process officially. And by doing so, we also maintain our eligibility for state and federal funds. for projects that and certainly the hub is one of the projects that we're looking for to submit grant applications. And in talking to our friends at the DNR, what they indicated to us is we need to officially begin that process. So with this approval tonight, we'll officially begin that process. And I know Wade, I'm hoping hopefully, well, maybe
I don't
he,
see
We
him.
lost Wade.
yeah, maybe he may have left, but certainly with, Stoner Prairie Park, with Terra Vesta Park, with the hub, we've got a lot of new park amenities that could be included in the updated plan, along with, there were several action items within the current plan that we've taken care of. So there's some updated, and actually Steve Arnold's Greenway plan was another thing that was brought to the forefront that we could easily include some language to include that in our plan. So, and the hope is that, we as staff will kind of manage that process and bring it back to the Park Commission in pieces. Certainly, at the end of the day, we'll need to have a public meeting and public hearing and all of those kinds of things. So just kind of an official start to that park and open space update plan process.
So, how long does this process go, and is there a timeline of when we vote that we have updated it?
Well, it certainly is going to be a process. I would suspect that we're going to be coming back to the Park Commission with some additions periodically. I don't think we want to sit here and do the whole plan, if you would, but there's certainly going to be some general additions to the plan that we could bring to the Park Commission for their concept or for their thoughts and input.
Yeah, and it doesn't replace individual park planning. It's more of less a guide as to where we are going.
Well, and it gives us an accurate assessment of where we're at and how we're doing, and gives us a little look into the future on how we should. Well, in the last discussion, as Wade mentioned, one of the action items was to, put a little bit more meat, if you would, into the park classification. So that's an item.
What kind of process do you want to use here? Do you want to go through your recommended updates, or do we go page by page, or how do you want to do that?
Well, I think let's rely on staff. Wade and I have been talking about it on how, efficiently and effectively we can do it. Certainly we don't have dollars to reach out to get a firm to come in and run us through a comprehensive update of it.
No, let's not do that.
Well, exactly. And I think with, Wade has shown an interest and a willingness, and we've got the capacity to do the update in-house. So I guess I'd like to proceed that in that fashion.
So would we then be offering, staff would be offering corrections such as Steve's Greenway concept. Would we read through this and look for corrections or additions, updates on?
Certainly,
Because
certainly.
this is, I don't know what, over 100 pages or something of this thing, I think. We've got 249 pages in the total in our packet right here, so it's a lot to dig through. I think this included, I can't find it right in front of me right here, but I think this included the little one paragraph or so on each of all of the parks, each one. So if we read through that and see, something has been added into a park and the paragraph needs to be updated, then we would write that up and offer that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And, our park amenity chart is changed,
Yeah,
changes.
charts, tables and things in here.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Whatever suggestions you might have,
Okay.
that'd be helpful, yeah.
I'll let you proceed. I think David had his hand up, so David, you got the floor. Does David hear me? David Gardner?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand up, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear him, so would it?
He said he didn't have his hand up.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
Oh, Sue does.
go ahead. Oh, okay, Sue.
Yeah, hi. We did have the citizen come in a month or two ago to talk about one element. So that is something we should look at. And so it wouldn't necessarily just be taking things off of a list that we've accomplished, but whether some of those items should be changed or reworded or refined. And just as long as we're on the subject, there's a reference in there to a desirable feature in a park as a velodrome somehow, and that one really is a head scratcher to me. So if there's any background down the road that someone can provide about that, just for the future, I'd look forward to know what that's all about.
I could give me a call, Sue. I'll share with you the velodrome project at Quarry Ridge Recreational Area.
That's a bike track.
Yeah,
thing,
I
isn't it?
know what it is.
Oh, okay.
I just, maybe we should, maybe it would be interesting for all of us to know. But anyway.
Well, and I, you know, certainly encourage Park Commission members. You actually do have a copy of the Park and Open Space Plan in your packet. You know, go through it and red mark it and get it to me, and I'd appreciate the help.
Oh, I see one thing here on page 82. You know, there is that, that infamous picture of a beer garden on page 82. Do we want to order that be removed, or have we cooled off about
no,
that?
what you do is you, just as I mentioned, you go through and mark it up and get it to me, and then we'll go from there.
Well, why don't we go through your recommended revisions or changes, and if there's any discussion on them, then we'll deal with it that time.
And certainly I do want to encourage Park Commission members, if they have a chance to run through and they see some things, you know, provide some edits, that's very helpful. So don't be discouraged.
Should we refer to it by the page numbers as it appears in this packet right here? Is that
Well,
good?
and actually, sure. Or, you know, if you wanted to print that specific page and jot a note on it and
No,
get it to me.
I don't want to print hundreds of pages.
I offer to make a copy for anyone that's interested. And actually, I made one for Mark for tonight's meeting, so I can certainly make a physical copy of the plan for you if you'd like one.
I think I would like one.
Just let me know, sure.
Yes. Oh, you want to vote and then open it up for whatever changes you want, or?
A motion that we're officially starting the action of updating the Park and Open Space Plan, and I'll provide copies if commissioners are interested, but certainly commissioners can provide me comments, and
Oh, I see what you're saying.
then we'll just.
What about your comments and changes? What do you
Yep.
want? it?
We'll get those in there too,
Okay.
at some point.
Do you want to do that tonight, or?
No. This is just the official start, and then we'll begin the process, and that's all we'll really do tonight at this point.
Okay, so what are you looking for from the commission?
Just an approval, and we're officially starting the Park and Open Space Plan update.
I'll take a shot at it. I move to approve the officially opening of the update to the 5-year Park and Open Space Plan update. to be contributed to by members and eventually by the public, and at some later point, we finalize our latest 2021 version. That would be right, wouldn't it? Okay,
Approved by the council.
yeah, and then, yeah, we vote approval and pass it on to the council.
Well stated. Is there a second? Does everyone understand what we're doing here?
We're opening for discussion.
Yeah, I guess it's just a formality of whether we're going to begin the 5-year plan update. It's not really support on the plan, it's just the process, I guess. So,
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, voting on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried.
Was that Sue that seconded? Okay.
Text of your motion there.
No, you gotta, you gotta catch it on the fly.
All right. Item C, 5C is tree protection ordinance goals / scope, excuse me.
And we actually have Craig, who's a member of the Tree Advisory Committee, who's, this is the work that the Tree Advisory Committee is currently undertaking, and Craig is going to give us a brief update, and then, you know, if there's some questions that the Tree Advisory Committee has of the Park Commission, feel free to shout them out, and then we'll give you some responses. So it's all yours, Craig.
All right, I appreciate that. Hopefully everybody can hear me fine. I think this is a little strange. I can see myself now on the screen.
Can I ask a question here? Is there something in our packet that we should be looking at?
I believe there should have been a document included in the packet.
What page, Scott? 114, okay, thank you.
I'm here just as a kind of intro to this project that the Tree Advisory Committee is working on. As part of this most recent comprehensive plan, and actually the past comprehensive plan, there's been a policy goal of developing a tree protection ordinance. And in prior years, the committee's been a little bit swamped with other tasks, so it hasn't really been something that we've been able to target, but we are now energized and ready to go to act on this part of the comprehensive plan and develop a ordinance that will ideally give a little bit more strength to the forester position, and also allow us to, and I've noticed some of the discussion earlier today about how, you know, keeping trees that we want to keep, and also, you know, why are we removing certain trees? There is in the urban service area a distinct lack of kind of review and approval from the forester of new developments coming in. And so our goal with this ordinance, and the document in your supplement kind of lays this out, but the idea is to add a stop and consider step to new developments. So the goals we have laid out here are pretty straightforward, but we're trying to, a lot of times they come in with the developments, they tear down all of the trees, and then they bring in and plant new ones, which isn't necessarily the best for tree diversity and keeping the older trees that are harder to replace alive and healthy longer. So the goals here is to reduce that tree loss, reduce damage in addition to the loss. If we do have to take out trees, which is frequently the case, add some sort of mechanism for providing for planting additional trees to mitigate that loss. Identifying maybe some of the heritage or specimen trees, which we've kind of got defined here as well for your reading before or after. And then trying to keep the tree canopy goals that is also part of our the Fitchburg comprehensive plan. So those are kind of the high level goal and idea of the project. What I am coming to Parks for is it's mostly a kind of keep you abreast, make sure that we understand concerns or comments on these kind of the goals and definitions page that we have here. Because what we would like to do is take a look at these, really nail down our scope here, say this is what we're going to do, and then move forward with the actual ordinance. And so we don't want to do that in a bubble or a vacuum or a silo, whatever your preferred metaphor is. So I'm bringing this here mostly to see if any of you have questions and to get your feedback on this as kind of a policy document.
Well, we do have a street tree planting ordinance that's in our planning and zoning. I don't think we have anything addressing wooded areas, you know, and requesting a tree survey or anything like that, but, you know, is that kind of what you're looking for, is like existing tree groupings that might be affected, or requiring a tree survey of some kind from developers, or?
Yeah, so that's a great point in distinction. So the new roads are actually already pretty well run through the process. What happens right now with new developments is really our focus. So having the idea would be to have new developments just submit a plan of some sort that would then not necessarily be a stopping block, but something where they're really thinking about it and discussing with Fitchburg what the best strategy is. And a lot of times it may be beneficial for developers as well as for the city to keep some of these trees, but oftentimes that's just not considered in the beginning parts of the process. So this would be targeting that kind of planning, inventory, and then coming up with a strategy kind of approach.
I don't know, Scott, since we don't have Wade here, but.
Well, maybe I could share some information with the group. I don't know if we did do a park and open space proposal. If you were here when Ed Bartel and Dana Dentis were on staff, what they did is they basically inventoried the whole city of Fitchburg and identified different woodlots, heritage trees, topography, infiltration, all of those kinds of things. So they generally put together an inventory map of all of those different amenities within the city of Fitchburg.
That's on public property, not private property.
We've
right?
not codified that in any ordinance, though. What's the only thing codified is the street tree plan.
Yeah, I'm just saying what we've got, and that was on public and private property.
On private too?
Yep, so it was all the different, so that would really kind of give a base map that Craig is looking for. And then certainly as every development has come into the city, what we've done is we utilize that map, because what we did is we actually created a greenway connection for all of these woodlots and those kinds of things. So we created a connection for all of them. So when a development comes in, then we kind of utilize that overall plan to make sure that we kept connections. So that's kind of a 50,000-foot view. But certainly, when a developer comes in, what we've been doing a better job of the developer coming into the park commission, because then we talk about, okay, where is the parkland going to be? Where is it going to make sense to have the parkland? But there could be another layer of amenities, if you would, in in woodlots or trees or those kinds of things. So I think there could be some additional information that maybe the developer needs to provide to the city, prior to their development. I don't know, when you get into the idea of, developer, they typically, that's the property, they own their property, so for us to tell them what they can do or can't do with their woodlots is hard for us. But certainly we, as the park commission, we can say, well, you know what, there's a big woodlot there. We will accept that as parkland dedication so that you don't go in and clear cut it kind of thing. So I think what Craig is really looking for is if we could have more authority and more teeth and certainly with that comes more capacity to review landscape plans and all of those kinds of things. So I certainly appreciate what the Tree Advisory Committee is looking to do. And I think we can make improvements within the existing processes that we have, that the Park Commission is now aware that, we've got this park and open space proposal which identifies natural amenities and we want to preserve those. So let's make sure that the developer keeps those natural amenities in their at their best value.
It's usually done on just the planning part. In
Right.
the sense, we already do that, but it's not codified in any ordinance that I'm aware of. And Quarry Hill, for instance, has a little wooded area that's in their a business park there. And for instance, that was protected, it was a quality wooded area, but it's very small. That's an example of in the planning portion of most developments, we really already do what I think is being noted. So I'm not sure if even you could codify something like that in an ordinance. Like, I'll give you an example of some of these wooded developments like Seminole Forest, pick that out. We can go through and protect a number of trees, but once the lot's sold and houses are built, they whack down a whole bunch more, because you gotta put up a building in there, and so it's sometimes you lose that wooded area anyway. And I'm not sure how you would change that unless, we, like you mentioned, identify the centennial trees, and just identify those in a planning process as being protected. But I'm not sure what more we could do. Is your commission working or advocating something that the city should be doing beyond what we already do, or is?
So I think there's a little bit of maybe a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. The first part is to just codify and put a little bit more teeth behind what we're already doing, and that's kind of what you're getting at, where there's maybe already some procedures in place, but unless they're really formalized, it could be tough. That doesn't mean they'll be permanent, right? Procedures change more easily than some of these, like an ordinance, for example. And then the other thing, and I apologize, I'm trying to get up on this as quickly as possible, but Anna, our forester, might, and this will open a dialogue, so maybe we can talk with her again sometime in the future. But my understanding is that the rural development criteria does kind of provides, there's a mechanism in place that already provides maybe some funds for replanting that just go into the general forestry fund, so we can kind of choose where to where to prioritize that replanting.
Yep.
So I think one thing that could potentially be, you're kind of to your question of what could we do more, that idea of making sure that, you know, every new plan has a, here's, you know, maybe they are going to tear out a whole bunch, but here's the funds to replant on the public areas or in the, you know, on the edges of some of these things to kind of offset that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything for rural areas, you know, that are zoned ag or even rural development for that matter. You know, we've always kind of left it up to the farmers or the property owners to use their land in the most, I guess, efficient,
It's the rural residential,
productive way.
not the agriculture. And I apologize for being unclear there. The rural residential development criteria have kind of the some of the ordinance structure that we might be looking for in the urban area.
But is your commission working or advocating some proposals?
So right now we don't have any formal proposal. What we have is part of your agenda packet, that kind of the goals of what we are trying to do. And then we wanted to kind of shop it around a bit, get feedback. I think everything both of you have said has been very useful. So I've been taking notes over here to bring back to our next meeting. But the idea is more to get this on your radar, something that we are thinking about working on, run these goals past. If anybody, you know, I know sometimes reading the whole packet before the meeting is tough. So if anybody reads it afterwards and has some thoughts or suggestions, we'd be happy to hear those as well. Because this kind of scope document is going to be our guide going forward. And we want to make sure that we are getting a diverse set of opinions before we develop anything. And then, you know, in the future, we'd be coming back with here's our concrete plan.
Or some ideas, you know, I guess that would be.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't say concrete. But yeah, here's what we are trying to do. And then spark more conversation at that time.
Susan had a comment, I think.
Hi, yes, I attended the last tree committee meeting because I was interested in this, and I think what I heard was Anna Healy describing, as we're hearing here now, that when a rural property is converted to residential, there is actually more on the books within Fitchburg to protect those trees than there are in some other areas of town. For example, if it's already, you know, an area that may be mostly farmland, but there are some interesting areas, there's nothing as strong as the rural residential development code is to protect, to even just look at together and ask the developer to provide the schematic of where are the trees, what are they, how can we work together to save them when they're valuable? And so, you know, this is an approach to thinking about taking some of those concepts and then include things that the city already does, what the planners already try to do without any formal ordinance or rules, to get it all down so that there is less of a perhaps disagreement or easier ways to find agreement. There's within this document, there's definitions of trees that are considered important. The goals include, number 5 in the goals is to provide for that 30% tree canopy within the urban service area. And that is in our comprehensive plan as it was last updated. So how do we get there? How do we stay there? And it's a combination of not just planting single individual little trees along the streets or within individual properties, but also retaining some of the old growth Because, with an oak tree, you can wait 60 years before you have anything significant looking, that just, takes a couple hours to cut down and replace with a small one that grows, to a medium size in 60 years. And so that's what I took away from the tree committee meeting that hasn't already been touched upon here. And then just a comment to take back that, down the road, if the document like this includes the rationale, so a lot of the rationale can be obvious to people who are interested, but for example, that example I gave earlier, if you remove a tree that's 100 years old, a native oak that's 100 years old, you can plant 100 baby oaks, but it doesn't make up the difference, because the difference isn't just the number of trees or the diameter of all those trunks added together. It's that mature tree contributes separately to the environment, providing habitat. The birds that will use a mature oak, are not going to do the same things in an oak tree that's 6 feet tall. So doesn't have to be that detailed of a rationale, but explaining that it's to maintain a healthy natural environment for not just the humans that occupy the city of Fitchburg.
Okay, I think we had somebody else that had their hand up there. No?
Yeah, hi, Chad. This is Mike Thorson.
Okay.
I did have a virtual hand up. Look, I'm going to kind of tread lightly on this. Sue, as you know, I like trees. I like to preserve trees. But as some of you, but not all of you know, I'm also a developer. And I'm also a city of Fitchburg resident over there in that Seminole Forest neighborhood where there are all these large, wonderful old growth trees. So I'm going to kind of haphazardly try to address a few different issues that people have brought up. The first thing to you, Craig, I would say, you don't need more laws about how many trees we need to plant when we develop. There are plenty of areas and instances for oversight, particularly in the Plan Commission process. Maybe you want to add some addendum to the Plan Commission process, which says they should review the landscaping and the tree plan, perhaps more deeply than they currently do. But I will tell you this, most responsible developers like trees as well. Trees are good for your properties. Trees add value to it. They are an amenity to the tenants. I have not developed a property, and for full disclosure, so across from Nine Springs and the senior project going up, I'm the developer who's developing that project. We have not ever done a project where we haven't planted more trees than we took down. Part of this is because a lot of times the trees you take down are unmanaged, old growth, but scraggly, bad. They're bad species, or they've been poorly managed, and so half of them are falling down, and it's a terrible forest. We did a project out by Garber Point where we took down an unmanaged forest. The neighborhood went up in arms, but we replaced almost 50% more trees than we took down, and they were a proper set of managed nursery trees. So long story short, getting back to what you're saying, Craig, I would say we don't need more laws about this. We just need to make sure that in the planning process, with the Plan Commission, when a developer comes with a landscaping plan, enough attention is paid to it. And, there are some developers are not responsible, some are. I would say most are. But if you catch it at that stage, that's where you can develop a proper tree management plan. Now, stepping back to, do we need to have more oversight over what trees can get taken down in properties and this and that? I would say my neighborhood, Seminole Forest, I have to get approval to take a tree down. Okay, so the neighborhood association has in its covenants okay, you want to take a tree down, Mike Thorson? You need to apply, you need to give us a reason. What are you going to do to replace it if you take it down, et cetera? I think that process works. It's probably not as organized and disciplined across neighborhood associations, but I think it's a good start because it gets the actual neighbors to the area invested in the process. The last point I would say is, look, we had a whole discussion about the park and everything, and I should have said something at the time, but turning that hub into this community center where people don't or probably aren't fully aware but may know, there are a lot of plans going forward here to redevelop the entire east side of that fish hatchery north of our current project across from Nine Springs. There will be a master plan that's going to happen. It won't happen overnight. It's going to happen in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. But rest assured, that whole area is going to be redeveloped into something that's going to be spectacular, that is consistent with this whole vision the city has laid out for the Fish Hatchery Road corridor. So I firmly support that plan that Julia Ratafrata has put forward for that hub project. And also rest assured that in the development of that, there's a lot of unmanaged growth and trees, to Susan's point, that are probably going to get taken down, but the developers of that are going to do whatever they can to make sure that as many, if not more, are replanted to make that a wonderful development. So I had a third point. I've forgotten it at this point because I've talked way too much, but thanks for your time.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was advocating an ordinance at this point anyway. And my questions were directed more to get clarification and to simply explain what I know already exists. I guess I would recommend the commission on, with a tree, what's the proper name for that commission? Tree
Advisory Commission.
Yeah, that they work on some objectives that will, address what problems they're trying to solve and how best to solve them. And that we could have more clarity brought to this commission and, other commissions that are involved in that process. So that's simply how I was getting at this point, so.
And I think that's the reason for Craig's appearance, is to kind of give a precursor that the group is working on it. And certainly if there's comments that the Park Commission would like to provide to Craig at this point,
Right.
I'm sure he'd be willing to take them, but, it's just kind of a heads up that this is what they're working on, and we'll see it in the future.
Patrick, go ahead.
The way I'm seeing this here, this is a goal of the Tree Advisory Committee to work on formulating an ordinance of tree protection. I like the goals as they're stated here, and I think the definitions are very useful also. As that speaker said, maybe there are some good neighborhood associations that carefully protect trees in their area, and that sounds good. That sort of sounds like maybe what the city at the higher level should make sure that happens in all development cases. Is that, Craig, is that what you're going for, to create an ordinance that the city would be able to protect trees, especially in cases of development?
Yeah, primarily development at this point. We've gotten pretty strong feedback that the idea of doing the neighborhood level control is going to be pretty unpopular. People don't like quite that granular of a thing unless it's, as Michael pointed out, in your neighborhood association, which you've kind of chosen to live as a part of that. So really, the focus is development, but I'm sorry, your name wasn't up there, so I'm not sure who I'm responding to, but the goal is these goals are for a specific kind of ordinance approach to formalize some of the things that are nebulous right now, or maybe less formal.
There's something I want to comment on. Scott said something, I can't repeat it, but there's a process that I am aware of that the Park Commission really does have a say on what a designated part of a development is going to be a park. The steps, as I understand it, is a developer comes up and says, we're going to take this something acres here and we're going to put so many units on it, and then the calculation goes through that says how many acres of parkland dedication they will, at the first step, have to provide. The Park Commission then can look at that acreage of park, and for one thing, can say, yes, that's a good place for a park, or no, we would like the park to include this over here or be over there or something. And then another step that the Park Commission can do is allow with the Park Commission's approval, the developer to then buy back some of that acreage. And if the Park Commission doesn't agree with the developer buying back some of that acreage, then the developer has to provide the calculated amount of acreage. So the Park Commission has that jurisdiction and final approval over acreage provided as a park.
Sorry to interrupt, Chad, but that's that's what the law says, but in practice, what happens? Nobody dedicates land to the park. They will pay a fee in lieu of land dedication.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, and I know there are circumstances in the past where there was a huge apartment building goes up and the number of units calculates out to be so much acreage. There is not that acreage even in the site to be able.
Correct.
So then they have to look elsewhere. And there's been amendments and negotiations and such about how much the Park Commission will accept in fees, and if it will allow the developer to provide some parkland somewhere else. Yeah, that's all part of that and everything. But my position is that the Park Commission does have the say-so on the decision. It's not, in other words, the developer's decision.
Oh, no. That's incorrect, Chad. He can choose to just pay the fee.
No,
in
I
lieu of
fully
land
disagree with
dedication.
that. I fully disagree with that.
Let's, I've got one other person that wants to speak, and after that, it's gonna be my suggestion that we just move on, and if the Forestry Commission wants to, solidify some of the issues that they're working on, we'd be more than happy to take a look at this and see what applies to parks and do it that way. If it's okay with you guys. And so Susan, I think you had your hand up.
Hi, yes, just to round things out, I appreciate Michael Thorson's comments, and there are a lot of developers that have the same value or understand the value of mature trees, and they try to work that into their calculation of how they develop. The other reason I think that having an ordinance is important, though, is it's guidance for the staff that's beyond something that can be changed internally without some serious discussion. There's a lot of pressure to make every square inch of owned land count. It's expensive to develop, and so ordinances, just like all the other hundreds that are on the books, are there for reasons. So this document was created with a substantial amount of time so far. It's not a complete document, but when we finish this meeting, I hope we all have time to reread what's here, because it's not suggesting that we're going to tell individual homeowners what to do. It's got nothing to do with that. The goals are reducing tree loss during development and damage to the existing trees that are planned to be saved, providing plantings to mitigate those lost during divisions and road development projects. Heritage specimen and significant trees. The 30% canopy goal, which is in the plan, our comprehensive plan, prioritize native, sustainable, and diverse trees. So, yes, it can end up being considered an irritant on some levels. The goals are pretty reasonable and I just think most of the time there's going to be agreement on how to enact them each time a development is reviewed. But I do think the staff needs this guidance as well. It's helpful for them. Thanks.
Sure. Well, we can talk about ordinances and that, but sometimes ordinances can box you in. And sometimes issues like that can be addressed more effectively in the planning process. But be that as it may, I think, we can, again, ask Mike to take it back to his commission and just, solidify some of the problems, identify the problems that he's more clearly, and also how they want to address them.
Mark, do you mind if I know you said you wanted to move on and this conversation could go on a long time. Do you mind if I just kind of do a closing remark before you guys move on?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Say that again?
Do you mind if I just do a quick closing remark before you move on to your next?
Well, I'm just suggesting that the commission that you're on can discuss it in a way that can formalize a more identify what you see as the problem and then how best you feel you can effectively address it.
What we're asking for is you guys to provide feedback on the formal list of goals and the scope we provided. And so I hope, I know many of you haven't probably yet, but I do really encourage you to read through and provide any kind of feedback you can, because these goals are formalized. These are what we're trying to do. And if there's more ideas, we're happy to hear them. And we will come back, in some amount of time with a more formal proposal. But this is the goals that we're working from. The comprehensive plan now and 10 years ago included to develop a tree preservation ordinance. So we are enacting the Fitchburg plan for this. So we want to get as much input as we can in that process. So appreciate the time. I know you guys have a lot of things on the agenda, so that's
No, I appreciate you keeping us abreast of what you're doing, and I think you've heard some good comments, and we can move on from there. Oh, who did? Sarah? Did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to say that thanks to Craig, and just as a quick reference, I wanted to call out that the sixth goal of prioritizing native, sustainable, and diverse trees is definitely something I have heard feedback from residents, that it's something that they value and pay attention to. So I think that that's something, like that sixth goal definitely caught my eye right away, of bringing value, and just, I think that makes sense, that I appreciated that goal. That was my only comment.
Okay. All right. Scott, you don't need any formal okay.
No action, right?
Mike, thanks for tolerating all these comments, and your time is appreciated as well.
No problem. And it's Craig is the name, but it's totally fine.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Yeah, on the point there, what? I think we should move on.
Well, okay, I'm going to say this. I request, call it a formal Parks Department explanation of the process of land dedication and fee in lieu of land dedication, and if necessary, a legal opinion from our city attorney, because I think this is a critical question that we're at odds here about whose decision it is of if the, well, really if the developer can decide that they just pay a fee in place of land dedication, we won't have any more parks in any of these developments. Or if it is the parks, I'm talking. Or if it is the Parks Commission's decision, as I understand it, and as I've seen written before, and this has come up in years past, that the Park Commission decides whether to allow a developer to pay the fee instead of the land dedication. So I would like a formal opinion on that.
Let's,
I would, can I just ask, I'd like a formal opinion on that as well, because I was not really given the option, given the size of the last property I developed, to dedicate. It would have been a lot cheaper for me as a developer to dedicate land and to pay the fee. I was told I had to pay the fee. So I would like an opinion as well. I agree. I'm with you, Chad.
okay. With that, I'm going to close that portion of the meeting and move on to item 5D, Jazz at 5 concert series at McKee Farms Park. What do you got? Sounds good.
And actually, we've got, I don't know if Spencer Stanberry and Mike Thorson, they're the authors of this proposal, a Jazz at 5 concert series at McKee Farms Park. So I'll let them kind of introduce the idea, and we'll go from there.
Hello. So Jazz at 5 is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have been throwing these free to the public jazz concerts in downtown Madison for over 25 years. Recently, with the pandemic, last year we had to cancel our performance series, and now this year we've wanted to make sure that we could have one. So we're looking at parks, somewhere that would be more open, where people can socially distance, and we've decided to go with McKee Farms Park. I've been talking and working with Angela Kinderman from the Fitchburg Chamber to do an event very similar to the current concerts at McKee. So right now we're looking at the dates. Starting in August, we want to go for 5 Wednesdays. It would be August 11th to September 8th. We would start our event setup at 12 p.m. and the event would end the cleanup by 9 p.m. We would have beer and wine served, making sure that we have signs up where the alcohol would be contained within the event perimeter. A youth band would open up at 4:30 and play until 5. We would then have a opening performance from 5 to 6, a headliner at 6 to 8 p.m., and then cleanup would be that last hour. Again, this is all going to be very similar to concerts at McKee.
I'm not seeing anybody who's talking on our screen.
Actually, yeah, Spencer is to the right of Mike. He's just here via phone. He's not here via picture.
Got it.
It's Spencer to the right, and then Mike is to the left.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for my lack of webcam.
No worries, Spencer, no worries.
Scott, we talked earlier, but I was curious, with concerts on the park, when does their programming end? Does it end in July? Or?
Well, they actually have if memory serves me, it's either the first or the second Monday of every month in June, July, and August is the Chamber of Commerce concerts in the park, if you would.
So there's no conflicts of...
No, I believe they're on Mondays, and then these guys would be on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So it really kind of is to some degree, a continuation of concerts in the park, from the chamber events to, if all goes well with this group, so.
So you mentioned vending. Who provides the vending for that? Is that their
They,
Your plan to organize that too as well?
well, they organize that.
Okay.
They have all of that as part of their program.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. So besides being an unsolicited commentator on the previous agenda items, and I probably should have kept my mouth shut. Yeah, I'm a board member at Jazz at 5 as well. We have had this for 25 years at the top of State Street on Capitol Square. It is a free performance. It's a wonderful event. We get anywhere from a couple hundred people when the weather's bad to over 1,000 when we have a nice sunny day. We are outgrowing that particular venue and looking for a new one. It is a well-established organization. We are completely funded by our corporate sponsors. It makes the event free to the public. It's a nice 3 hours, 5 Wednesday nights. When we were downtown, we started it the week after concerts downtown ended and went for the next 5 weeks. And looking for a new home, we think McKee Farm Parks is going to be wonderful. We have appreciated working with Angela Kinderman and with Scott to this point, and hoping to make this happen going forward here at a new home. Behind me is the scene of one of our concerts on the square downtown.
I think it sounds exciting. Just go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, you answered some of my question. You said this is a free event, and I was reading through your description here. So it's free to anyone to walk in, and at their and they can listen to the jazz concerts. They can have the option of buying food and beverages. It mentions a beer tent or beer under tent. Is there? So can you describe it a little more? Is there admission into this tent, or it's free to go into the tent? Then you can choose to buy beer, something like that?
Yep. There is no charge to be anywhere near the event. You wander in, you can walk in. If you want to buy a beer, that's so part of the reason why we have the alcohol and beverage sales is basically half our revenue comes from our corporate sponsors and half our revenue comes from beer sales, and that pays for the entire event. If we didn't have those two sources of revenues, I don't know how we would continue in existence. We don't have major benefactors like Concerts Downtown does. We basically run we have a budget and we run it to that budget with our corporate sponsors and our beer and wine sales, and it keeps it free to everyone. So
is weather a factor?
We have had some national acts that have been unbelievable. So we get 1 or 2 national acts a year. We have local youth performance, jazz performance acts at the beginning of each show, and then we have generally regional acts in the middle of the shows.
Is the music in the McKee shelter, in the open part of the shelter, or in the tent, or what? And is weather a factor on whether this event goes ahead or not?
Weather is definitely a factor. We have in the past had an alternate rain-out venue. We've done that, for example, at the Coliseum Bar off of John Olin in the past, but sometimes we just can't. If the weather's bad, we cancel it. It's an outdoor event, and the weather's good. We get upwards of 1,000, 1,500 people. When the weather's bad, no one wants to show up, and the alternate rain-out venues are generally not very well attended. So we haven't figured it out from a logistics standpoint just yet, where to set up the bands and where to have the crowds. We have a general idea. We're going to be working with Angela because they've done this for concerts at McKee for a decade. We'll figure it out, and we'll figure out what we're going to do for inclement weather as well.
So it's not determined of where the jazz bands would be at this point?
We have an idea.
Yeah, we have an idea.
Of it being by the pavilion where the restrooms are, and also speaking on the tent, it's not a very large tent. It's more of a 8x8 square tent where we set it up right next to a beer caddy that's provided by General Beverage, and then people walk up to purchase their beer or wine.
Okay, so it's not meant for people to be in that tent. They walk into the tent, they buy a beer, they walk out.
Correct.
Okay, that size. Okay, because I'm thinking this kind of sounds like a cross between the concerts at McKee and the previous Fitchburg days, which of course was a very large tent, and you had to get admission to get into it, and then you can sit there, listen to the bands that were in the tent, and buy beer, and but it's between the two of those events. This is.
Scott, do you have any concerns from a staff point? I forgot to ask you.
No, and again, I think this is just a mirror image of the concerts in the park put on by the chamber, and I know they're working with the chamber, so logistics, I'm sure, will be the same, and
Yeah,
I
they're
think
very
it'll.
popular, the concerts in the park.
Oh, very, very. And we've got, logistically set up with 50 amp services and so it's gonna be a nice fit, so.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Scott, as you know, I live right across from McKee Farms Park. We've had some issues as it relates to the beer garden proposal. We've had issues as it relates to certain kinds of events, Fitchburg days that have caused problems with, for various reasons. I've attended jazz at State Street. I think it's good. I would, however, caution you that the setup is important in terms of the winds and the projection of the sound. We have neighbors that live very close to the park. This is not a park that's very well buffered in some areas. Number two, as I understand it, the city of Fitchburg does not have a acoustic ordinance. Is that correct, Scott, or not?
We have a sound ordinance.
Yeah, we have a sound permit ordinance.
They'd probably have to apply for
You have a permit, but what is the decibel level described as?
Yeah, that I'd have to get, I don't know if we've got a
It
specific.
seems to me for Fitchburg days, it was something like 90 decibels was the maximum limit because I volunteered at Fitchburg days, and I know there was people there that had sound meters to make sure the bands didn't get too loud. And yes, like David said, it's important to orient the music, for one thing, to not point to the east. And I know, there's houses all around McKee, but Fitchburg days had to be very careful. They were inside of a tent, which helped confine the sound. The concerts at McKee, I guess, plays the sound out to the west, which seemed to be okay. But that's important.
I think those kind of details could be worked out with staff.
Well, they're often
I don't
overlooked.
see this being any different than concerts on the park. It's not any different at all.
Okay. I would suggest, though, that the Park Commission should look at what is the density in terms of the number of events in the, quote, nice weather. We had a proposal for a beer garden that would be 6 days a week for 6 months. I mean, Scott, you can say, oh, well, I think it'll be fine, but I don't know that you've actually are sensitive to the neighbors that are there in the park. The park, just wait.
We're not suggesting 6 days a week for 6 months. It's
No,
one
of
night a
course
week.
you're not. You're one event, but the Park Commission is entertaining various proposals. And so I think it's good to gradually increase the amount of activity that would take place in the park. But there has to be some acknowledgement that there is a certain density. You're talking about 1,000 people coming. 2 people per 1 car, that's 500 cars. Where is the parking? What is the impact in the neighborhood? Have you thought that through? Mike?
What is your concern, the
I would have
sound?
said that this is going to be a very similar event to concerts at McKee, which already occurs.
I don't think there are 1,000 people there at all. I don't even think it's close to that.
I was told,
different?
And again, as I said, that would be kind of a large crowd with a really nice evening, and that was downtown. I don't know what we're going to get from, maybe we lose crowd because we're in Fitchburg. Maybe we get more crowd, but we don't know the answer to that. We do end at 8 p.m. Okay, we're not out till midnight, you know, creating hundreds of decibels. And we would be happy to kind of listen to your suggestions on where to put the band and where the sound should be, you know, pushed towards, because again, it's a new location for us. It's something, it's exciting, but it's new, and we have to figure it out. I think you will probably find that a crowd that goes to a jazz concert is probably different than a crowd that goes to kind of a pop rock kind of, you know, venue, and probably is more subdued.
Please, I would like to make sure I'm understood. I'm not against this, but at some point, the Fitchburg Park reaches a certain capacity, and maybe this is a preferred activity, I agree, but I do think you need to be sensitive. You want to start off in the right way and not say, well, we tried something and we didn't consider that. Parking, the sound, the hours sound very reasonable. The number of days sound reasonable, but does Fitchburg going to entertain 4 or 5 different music venues that are going to be like this as well? Because there are 90 days in the summer, or 120. So that's my only comment. At what point is too much too much?
What kind of information are you looking for specifically? I mean, noise or number of people? What? Some of them are unknown. I mean, number of people, concerts on the square,
Are you
or,
asking
excuse me.
me, Mark, or who?
Yeah, he made some comments on, you know, his concerns, and I just want to be sure that.
No, my concern is that, one, I think this is great. Too much of a good thing is not good. Number 3 would be, please make sure that the orientation and the sound is adequately thought about. 4, parking is considered, and so that it's a well-run event. There are well-run events here in Fitchburg. I would just expect that this would be the case as well.
Okay. Is there any other comments or concerns?
I think this sounds great. I think Concerts in the Park is a really fun Fitchburg event. I would make a motion to approve Jazz at 5 concert series in McKee Farms Park.
Okay, motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Who seconded it? Or you, okay.
David Gorder.
Chris got it.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Voting on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Give him a chance, Mark.
I was a little quick on my opposed, dearest, but I did hear more ayes, so I'd say it passed. Sorry about that.
We'll be in
Just
touch.
for your concerns, David, I'd love to reach out and have a discussion so we can make sure we're helping to address some of those.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Dave, you know, raises some points, and I think it's fair to address some of them,
And
or all of them, I mean.
Well, I agree too.
And again, we're gonna mirror it, and they're working with the chamber, so it's gonna be a similar event. So I think the success of the chamber events is gonna be echoed with the success of this event. So
Okay,
I think we're good.
very good. We're down to E, resolution, our 6321 resolution, approving the 2021 through 2023 medium mowing contract. And do you want to do E and F together, or, I mean, I know
Well-
they're different resolutions, but they're kind of related in some respects.
Yeah, let's we'll take each of them individually, Mark, if you don't mind. And like you said, one.
Okay, let's do it that way.
You know, the first one is the median mowing. So we're actually going to have 2 separate contractors. We're going to have one contractor that's going to be doing the mowing of the grass, which is under this resolution. And then the following resolution, 6421, that's for the median landscape. And this is an annual contract that we've been undertaking. And actually what we're doing this year is we're doing a 3-year contract, just because it is difficult to, get bidders and all of those kinds of things, along with, it's going to provide some certainty to the city, and certainly some certainty to the contractor. So both of these will be 3-year contracts.
What was it before, annual or 2-year?
They were just annual. They were all annual.
Who, was it the city that determined the amount of increase per year, 15%, I believe? Was some mutually agreed upon number, or?
What's that, Mark?
Well, in subsequent years, there's a 15% increase in the amount of payment.
Well, that's just going to allow staff the flexibility to go ahead and approve it without because there might be some additional lands that need to be included in the contract. So the base price is not going to change, but the contingency is, and I would suspect that we may add some additional spaces to be maintained. And actually, there are current, not with the mowing, but with the landscape. The contractors are responsible for 2021 and 2022 to get it established. But then in the 3rd year of the contract, then the city will take over the maintenance of that specific median landscape. So there's different.
If they identify, say, contingencies in subsequent years, we could pay them up to that 15%.
Right.
Depending on what they are, of course.
And basically, it's just so that we don't have to come back to the council, if you would. But we would need to stay within the contract amounts that the contractor provided in the bid. What we did ask for is we asked for not only individual locations, but then an individual price per square foot for any additions to it. Okay. So we got that price in the contract. So for example, we build a new road someplace and we have all this additional median that needs to be mowed. The contractor would get that median with that square footage price. And then we would have to add it, so that's where that 15% may be needed, because as we continue to grow, and we're kind of, just guessing educationally that things are gonna grow. So we're really trying not to go out for bids, as infrequently as we can. But certainly, after 3 years, then it's time to rebid it. And we have had difficulty getting contractors to bid for it. So hopefully this will get them locked in for 3 years. We got some additional money in case we have additional properties that we'll need, that kind of thing. So,
Patrick, you had your hand up earlier.
Just the question, if I'm remembering it in the history, was there times in the past where it was a 1-year contract with an option to renew the 2nd year on the same terms in the past? Is that something that?
Well, we didn't offer that, but that did happen, where the contractor was willing to keep the price that they had the previous year. So then we went ahead and approved that contract for the 2nd year.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. In this contract, since 3 years is 3 times as much, is there anything in the contract, let's say an option on the city, let's say failure to provide the minimum level of service, that the city can say, wait a minute, we're canceling you out or something?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, and the city is protected from somebody, let's say, going downhill on their
Right.
service, or even not able to cover everything.
Absolutely.
When they get to the 2nd and even the 3rd year, the city can say, wait a minute, this isn't working, we're gonna.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And let's see here. This is, where did I see that? There, Prime Landscapes is the one for the mowing contract? It's in the, now be it hereby resolved. Is that the run?
Yep, Prime Landscapes for this one that we're currently working
Okay.
on, the mowing, yep,
6321, okay. Have we used them before?
yes.
Were they last year's contract?
They've been the last couple years,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? Motion?
I would move to approve resolution R 6321 for the mowing of the medians.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Susan. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, voting on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
I have a question. I probably, well, it doesn't make any difference if it was before the vote or not. In the next page right here, there's a letter from Joran explaining, for one question here, this is page 140. Is this in response to something that I had mentioned about Perry J. Shappy Park mowing?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Because
it
this
is.
this is a median mowing contract, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And yes, I had mentioned in the past, as a couple of examples, Perry J. Shappy way over on the east side off of, just south of Irish Lane, and then also Briarwood, which is way far down to the south. So Joran has answered about Shappy that it's not worth it to hiring a contractor for that. What about Briarwood?
I would suspect that Briarwood is included in the same grouping of parks similar to Chapey, so it,
Well, to get to Perry J. Shappy, yeah, you take Irish Lane straight across from the Parks garage to the east end of Irish, and it's right over there. But Briarwood, you got to go all the way down to Highway M on Fish Hatchery, and those 16-foot mowers, they drive them down the road, right? So they drive that down Fish Hatchery and then get on Highway M and then go over to the east and then come back up into Briarwood. So that's even, farther, worse, more distance. So maybe Joran could think about that.
we'll take a look at Briarwood
Okay.
for you, Patrick.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next on our agenda is Resolution R 6421, resolution approving the 2021 to 2023 median landscape maintenance contract.
In this one, we only received the one bidder, and it is a group that we've worked with in the past, and we've been happy with their work, and actually their price was similar to what it was last year.
Any comments?
And this, again, Mark, is for the landscape, the pruning, and included in this is a spring cleanup. They also need to weed twice a month, and then they have a fall cleanup, along with, mulching the areas and those kinds of things. So that's what's included in it.
Real good. And, yeah, you addressed that concern on the last one. So is there any other questions, comments? If not, I would need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R 6421 median landscape maintenance.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, there's a second. Any discussion on the motion?
My
Hearing
only
none.
comment is it's my annoyance of every time we talk about the medians is if they could just try to not use the tall grasses, because that is something that I've received the feedback on from the landscaping perspective.
To not do what? Not mow them? Not plant them? What?
Not plant the
Not plant
decorative
them,
long,
yeah.
tall grasses, that they are attractive, decorative grasses, but just that they can be kind of tall and be difficult to see around within the medians.
Is that part of their job, to plant things in the median?
No, but what we have done is we've pruned them heavily so that the visibility
Oh.
is not obstructed.
Right, because it is a median where traffic needs to see.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
So, what should the median landscaper do about that?
They will prune them heavily.
Prune them heavily, okay.
Are we getting complaints on cutting all the flowers that grow naturally, or?
No, this is the tall grasses that grow about 3 or 4 feet that can become a
Oh, the
vision.
decorative ones you're talking about, those
Yep,
planted?
the
Yep.
tall grasses that they can become an obstruction in intersections of traffic, so.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, there was a motion and a second. No, hearing no further discussion, voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Let's see, item G, resolution R 6621, approval of the 2021 spring tree planting plan.
Wait,
Yep,
Did
actually,
I
Mark,
skip something here?
yep, we're
G&H.
resolution R 7721.
what are we supposed to do about G and H?
What did I do here?
I'm gonna explain it.
Okay.
Well, in Mark, you don't have an updated agenda, my friend.
You don't?
Well, let me get to the right one, because I'm not seeing anything else.
that's not right.
Something that came up before I printed your packet.
I got an old agenda.
This came up after I printed your packet and got it to you.
Ah,
So there's, sorry about that.
it is different. I'll be danged. Okay. All right.
So-
Oh,
so-
got a few more things here.
Yes, just,
Shame on you.
well, I tell you, it was busy Friday afternoon, so.
Yeah. All right. Let's see, where are we then? I,
Well, G,
D, G. Our resolution R 7721, resolution approving the 2021 to 2023 median mowing contract.
and the reason that this item and the next item is on your agenda is that Alder Gabriella Gerhartz, she wanted to refer these two agenda items to the Resource Conservation Committee. So the only way that we could do it is to get it to the council and a direct referral. So really, the only action that you guys need to take is to basically, it'd be the same vote that you took with the original resolutions. What may happen is the council, they're gonna decide whether or not to take the resolutions as they originally were, referred. But they may also decide that, you know what, we want this to go to the Resource Conservation Committee before we act on it. The thing is they don't have a meeting in April. If they would have had a meeting in April, it would have worked out all right, because the RCC meeting in April would have met before the council meeting in April, which is the 13th. So RCC, in theory, if they would have had an April meeting, would have met on the 12th. But since they don't have a meeting in April, they don't meet until May. So if the council decides that, you know what, we're gonna honor Gabriella's referral to go to the RCC, then it'll have to wait until May, which in turn, from a park perspective, is gonna put us way behind.
Too late.
Way behind,
And-
because you're gonna start to mow your grass soon here, so that's what the timing was, to get it approved by the middle of April, April 13th. But if the council decides to refer it and go to the RCC, we're not gonna get approval until May 15th, so it'll be a whole month. Which-
Gabrielle is on RCC, isn't she? She's older on RCC?
I believe so,
Okay,
Patrick.
Sarah says yes.
Yeah.
Has RCC ruled out an option of a special meeting?
And and this was kind of the whole,
I mean, that would be one
Rush
way
of
to
it,
solve
that-
that problem.
well, I wasn't gonna make,
Yeah, sure.
I'm
I
not
mean,
gonna
if
make
they-
a
If they,
suggestion.
for some reason, have said, our next meeting is May and that's it, then yeah,
well, I wasn't,
somebody is stuck.
I had that in my head, but I'm not in charge of the RCC, so.
So do Okay, so there's two different ordinance numbers, Resolution R 6321 mowing and R 7721 mowing.
They're the same. The
They're
resolutions are
the
the
same,
same,
the whole same ordinance, but two
Everything's-
different resolution numbers.
right?
So
And
we
we-
approved 6321, and the council at some point is going to decide if they like 63 or 77?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
so
What's the
do we have to
difference
do anything with this?
I don't know, Patrick.
Could we
but
like throw our approval
Yes,
on
let's-
it? And
please,
then the council can pick and choose?
please.
Okay, that sounds simple enough.
That seems to make, that would make the most sense to me, yeah.
Sounds fine.
I missed, the concern about what's the difference between these two?
There's no difference.
Well, there's no difference, well, there would be a difference in that when the contract would be, when we would be authorized to do the contract. If the council decides that they want RCC to see it, RCC doesn't meet until May, so then the council couldn't act on it until the first meeting in May.
Well, those just, well,
Sarah, can you give us any insight on this from the council, how this end came out or whatever from?
So
No,
I do, Alder Gerhard had added this, requested it to be added to the RCC, saying that they would meet in April, but I think it was just an oversight that they don't have that April meeting. So I can totally track with what Scott's saying, is it's just the timing wasn't appropriate, and so they'd already issued out the previous resolution as to where it was going to go for approval, and then they had to create these almost duplicates so that RCC could also be included with the different time frame. So, yeah, I can see how it happened, unfortunately.
it's up to the council to, they can rescind that
Right,
Well,
right.
that's
referral.
not necessarily a good solution here.
But-
What, that sounds to me like we should just go ahead and, unless we have anything else to say, you just approve 77 and then the next one even, 78. The council can pick one or the other and it's not our problem.
I don't care. What you want, what do we want to do? We need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve resolution R 7721, 21 to 23 median mowing contract.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, good. All right, hearing no further discussion. Voting on the motions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion, all those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And the resolution R 7821. Same thing there, correct? All right, we have a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution R 7821, approving 21 to 23 landscape maintenance.
Okay, second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Okay. It was silent there, and then we got two. That's great. Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. All right, now we're down to J, which is proposed 2022 to 2031
No,
capital
no,
improvement.
no, we're on I now, Mark.
What?
We got I.
What did you say? We're on
Resolution R 6621.
Oh,
Yeah, that
I missed, I've been checking them off way too quickly, Scott.
I appreciate it, I appreciate it.
I gotta back up. Resolution R 6621 approving the 2021 spring tree planting plan.
Yep, and this is, we have a total of 125 trees. We were actually received six proposals, with the low proposal coming from SRB Trees. And SRB Trees has done this planting for us in the past.
They were the one last year, weren't they?
They may have been, and
Sounds
actually,
familiar.
Dan Larson was second, which they've done it for us before, and McKay is third, and they've done it for us before in the past too.
Does the city forester decide how many trees as well as the variety?
Yep.
Okay, so that's how it goes out to
Yep.
bid then?
Yep, and it's a combination of development trees, well, and that hence is the different account numbers. Some are for parks, some are for terraces, some are for developments. So it's actually quite a process, to be honest with you. But 125 total, and we got a good competitive price, so
Okay.
I would request approval.
I'm thinking that SRB trees was probably the one last year. The city forester, does she go out also and inspect the trees, like, in the spring?
Oh,
They
yeah.
may not be budding out and certainly not leafing out yet, but there's an inspection of last year's planted trees to make sure they're all good,
Yep.
still growing. There's a year guarantee on them. right?
Correct.
All that
Yep. Yep.
part of it, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, would need a motion then to approve.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution R 6621, approval of the 2021 spring tree planting.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. All those opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, I have a question then. I had mentioned the last meeting, and I'm wondering if this might possibly go anywhere. Would our city forester possibly consider seeing if there's either free or extremely low cost, like a few hundred white pines to seedlings to get and plant for visual screening barriers, for wind barriers? Because like in McGaw Park, there is so wide open in that western addition, the wind just tears across there. And it'd be nice to plant some white pines. Are fast growing, they'll get thick, give them 10 years. It would provide some good wind screening. So I'm wondering if she could possibly consider that, look into it a little bit, see if there's then some really cheap seedlings obtainable.
And certainly, and I think that might be a potential strategy when we get into areas 2, 3, and 4 and get all the invasives out of there and then put temporary screening in there.
Into 2, 3, and 4.
No.
No, I'm thinking, like, in particular, the pickleball court area, the
no
middle
doubt.
plateau,
Yeah, no
and
doubt.
the other 2 plateaus.
No doubt.
And just kind of thinking that through a little bit, I think the ideal place to put some pine trees like this would be on the banks where it drops off the plateau down into the deep moat,
No.
and then plant trees on the bank right there. And because it's got to be hard to mow on that side of that ditch.
No, I
And
think
then the
that-
roots would also control the erosion.
No, I think that makes sense. No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. On the west side of the access.
Yes,
path.
on the west side of all west and north side of all those banks
No,
would be a
I
really
agree.
good place to put
I
trees
agree.
like that.
I agree. Well, noted.
Okay, good.
All right. CIP, what do you got for us?
The next, do you want me to go through the next one, Mark? Are you ready for item J, proposed 2022-2031 CIP?
Yeah.
Okay. What I've done is included in your packet the CIP projects that I'm proposing some changes to. And if we just started on page 222, that's the McGaw Park CIP. And what I'm proposing in 2022 is to get a playground in there, along with, I'm thinking of some path lighting to go east to west through the central part of the park. And what I did too is I identified some projects that had been completed, and then we've got some future projects scheduled for McGaw. And I guess what I'd like to do is at the end, get a motion and an approval. And certainly what we'll do is, if you've got some additions along the way, we'll just include that in the final approval at the end. So I'll just kind of roll through these, and then if we've got questions when we're talking about them, then you can raise those questions. So that's a McGaw.
I have questions about that.
Yeah.
For one thing, why does it say pickleball courts done? They started on Monday, they're not done.
Well, yeah, it's,
You mean like approved and in
yeah,
progress?
approved, and that one's
Okay.
upcoming project, so I classify that as, yeah, it's not completed, but I cross it off my list.
Okay, and then these lights and playground, the lights are a very odd thing to see here. I know at the council discussion, when they were talking about the pickleball courts and the parking lot, and the council decided 6-2 to not include and not build the parking lot, but there were comments from, I know at least Julia Radafrada, about the pickleball courts could be more useful if they were lighted, although this says right on there, it's right there, pickleball courts, parentheses, 8, comma, unlit,
Yeah.
parentheses. So this was designed from the beginning to be unlit pickleball courts. So it seems odd to then light the pathway going through here when the pickleball courts are dark. If you're going to spend money on something in there, seems like the pickleball courts would be more useful to light up. And I think of McKee Park, where the tennis courts have lights in McKee. The parking lot that's right next to the tennis courts in McKee do not have any lights, and that dim little light in that one little 12 by 12 shelter is certainly not going to light up the parking lot. So that seems like a more practical way to spend some money, to consider, maybe adding lights onto the pickleball courts. Although that was not part of the original description, it says 8 unlit, and it's not part of the project that they are working on right now. So this seems like out of the blue. I even looked up last year's CIP proposal. One odd thing that I found out from last year, going back through minutes and agendas last year, the February meeting was canceled because of no quorum, and then the April meeting was canceled because of COVID breaking out, and this was an unessential meeting. So I don't think that in last year, just a side note, that the CIP was ever even discussed at the Park Commission last year, but we do have it here. And in last year's CIP for McGaw Park, there was nothing at all about lighting the pathway. There was nothing about the playground. So this is really just popping up out of nowhere.
No doubt. Yep, I agree. This is what I'm proposing, which is up for discussion here at the Park Commission. So
Where would
make a motion to do whatever you want to do, and we'll see if we get a second, and we'll go from there.
like one by one thing here?
Well, like I say, what we can do is we'll include it in the final motion, but
Okay.
if there's a question that comes up, we'll take an individual vote on.
Where would this playground go?
If you look at the, I did include in your packet.
Yeah,
There,
the next page.
Yep, the next page. They're on the west end. There's one on the north side and the one on the south side.
Okay, one thing about this map layout here of the western edition of McGaw Park, this is not the latest site layout. This is not the same site layout that the council reviewed and discussed. There's differences here. This is an obsolete plan.
This is the conceptual plan, so for our purposes of just deciding roughly where the playground was gonna be, this plan is just fine for tonight,
Okay.
I would say.
Pointing out it's not the one the
Thank you,
council
Chris.
reviewed. Okay, so to the west there. I don't agree with the idea of putting the lights on the pathway when, like I said, the pickleball courts are unlit. It seems there's better use of the lighting and the money.
So
One question is this, when it says, let's see here, it says something about pedestrian lighting, I think, maybe?
Isn't this consistent with McKee Park?
Yep, well, and the other lighting in McGaw,
Right, I mean, it's the same along the path, I mean.
yeah, along connect the east, connect Fahey, the development to McGaw Park. Kind of a, safety, a lights. Path lighting for the connection there.
Well, when something says pedestrian lighting, some people consider pedestrian lighting to be like the bollards that are out in front of City Hall out here. They're like 3 or 4 feet high.
Our pedestrian lighting is what
Right,
we've got on our
17
path.
and a half foot tall poles, which are used for street lighting, parking lot lighting, and then up and down the pathways all over in McGaw Park, same lights. So it's really tall light poles.
So these aren't bollards lighting?
They're not short.
Yeah, they're similar, they'd be the similar lights that are currently in McGaw, so. So is that a motion then, Patrick?
I'm motioning to drop the lights.
Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion? Motion fails for lack of second.
Okay. So let's, so what is the next one here? The next one is McKee, and there really isn't any, I think I just made the adjustment to crossing off the list what we've gotten done. So there's nothing new in McKee, and really what we're doing, commission members, is we're approving what we're looking to do in 2022. The other years after 2022 are kind of placeholders for projects, so we're really looking specifically at 2022. So then, reoccurring park. This one's a little bit choppy, if you would, but if you look under 2022, I've got kind of a box there that is under 2022. We got burn.
Can I ask a question here? Just a clarification on the McKee. I had to pull my notes out.
McKee?
McKee, yeah. There one item there, it's marked as done, where it says 2018 replace concrete at the entrance of the shelter, 40,000 on the levy. Does that get updated? Because I think that the actual cost of the concrete was something like 12,000 or so instead of the whole 40,000. So is that make any difference as far as changing the 40,000?
I don't think so, Patrick. And it was more than 12.
Well, it wasn't 40.
Yeah, it wasn't 40, no. Yeah, we don't update that at all.
Okay, all right.
I can certainly find out for you, but
No, that's all right.
send me an email.
I just wondered if that was a step in updating the figure.
No. I just cross it off.
Okay.
So then, for the reoccurring, in 2022, I'm proposing the burn basketball hoop replacement, the Hatchery Hill drainage issue. I don't know if you're familiar in Hatchery Hill. We've got a park that is really unusable a lot of the year just because it's just a big bog. So the idea of doing some grading and potentially adding some material to make that open space a little bit more usable.
That's the one that's one block west of Fish Hatchery?
Yep.
Let's see, is that at Cahill, Maine?
No.
Or
yeah, it is Cahill,
with
Maine,
the
in that
stoplights
area.
on Fish Hatchery?
Yep. Well, you can see it from Fish Hatchery.
Yeah, it's a block west, and then it's the next block to the north of Cahill, Maine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then we're also proposing Hillside Heights Playground.
Can I comment on the Cahill, Maine? That was originally graded for an outdoor sort of amphitheater, small amphitheater, and it was never put in. The developer was supposed to give some money and.
Oh, that makes sense
never
then.
happened, so we ended up grading it, but it never changed, it never got put in.
Yeah, and I can see where there is kind of like a bank on the western end, but it's just,
That's why it's that way.
yeah, it's just not usable, right, right.
You're saying it holds water and it's,
Oh,
okay.
right, right.
And
And what we're thinking we could do is we could put an east-west crown on it, so it drained to the north, and there's kind of like a drainage area down to the north, and then there's actually like adjacent to the road, a little bit of a gully, if you would. But it just all sits in there.
I'm not familiar enough with it. Is that to kind of fill in whatever is low and make it shed over the surface outwards and?
Well, we'd have to
off?
shoot grades and all of those, whether we'd have to bring in material or whatever it is, but it is to shed the water so it's usable space.
Okay, and if it was supposed to be something else, is it like not possible to put a drain and it will drain the low spot? It seems to me that's a hill. It's on a big hill.
There's
to
a
the
hill, so the idea is to put a crown east-west and shed it both north and south, so it becomes usable. It's not usable.
And it can't be just drained like with an underground drain type out of it. When Mark says it's supposed to be an amphitheater or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the developer wanted, more activity going on in that park, so it would generate some more visibility for businesses that are located on that side of the shopping center. And, the whole concept of, small concerts and such never really materialized, and the amphitheater concept never materialized either.
Yeah, and
That was the idea behind it.
I'm just questioning if there's a value in, sort of finalizing that original idea.
Not at this point, I don't think.
Okay.
We're just trying to make it usable. So that's a reoccurring, and then we got the Nine Springs Golf Course.
Could I ask a question
Yep.
about what we just talked about, the Hatchery Hill? I appreciate everything that's been described. It was planned for something that never occurred. But do we have obligations to look at the parcel anew to say, is it appropriate to make all the water drain off? Are we responsible for creating anything within the boundary of the park, like a large rain garden area to absorb any moisture? Because the reason I'm asking is that we have, on the other hand, a problem where we're mowing more grass than people are making use of. So if we're simply going to grade it, plant grass, and then mow all the grass and have somebody else worry about where that water goes, I think we actually hold developers to a higher standard than that. So can we check on whether there are any requirements? And even if there aren't requirements, is that really the most, even though it's expedient, is that the most responsible thing to do?
Well, and I can certainly understand what you're saying, Sue. This space is actually the open play space designed for that neighborhood, if you would. And if you're familiar with the park, we've got a playground there. We've got a gazebo. We've got a path that goes through there along with a wing fence for open play. But the open play area is just not usable because it just retains water. So we're just really trying to get the water to sheet flow off of it. I don't know if the idea of making it a rain garden is, if that's what you're thinking.
Well, that's just answering the question without offering.
I think we're obligated to.
Solution, but we.
Yeah, the development actually won some award from Dane County for being the best designed I don't know what they call it, but I'll just say new urbanism kind of concept or compact development. And the park itself was supposed to be more of an urban flavor, so that there would be more activity or, something that would be a draw to bring people in and bring more vibrancy to that area. And, right now it's kind of dead, but I
Well,
don't have any ideas.
I think if anything, the park commission their obligation would be to help the park, if you would, so it can perform the function that it was intended to perform at the beginning. And like I say, it's supposed to be an open play field for that neighborhood, and it really doesn't function as an open play field at this point. So we're looking to try and make some modifications to it so it can become that open play field for that neighborhood.
Is this the play field that accumulates water, or like a bowl that was supposed to be an amphitheater?
Well, you'd have to go out there and take a look at it,
I'd have
and
to
what
go.
it does is there's a bowl there, but then the flat part is where the water is holding in, which is the athletic play, which is the open play field.
I'd have to go look at it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Does water drain from somewhere else and go into this, and then by filling it in, the water is going to be sent out?
The water will go to where it's naturally supposed to be flowing. There's actually, I believe, a stormwater facility on the north side of it that the water in theory will go to, and then there's a small swale or a ditch on the south end of it that the water would go to.
For what it's worth, I'm looking at an aerial photo right now and grading it as Scott described looks to make sense. There are two surface inlets on the south side along Cadiz Bend, which looks like it was intended to gather water, and then there is a drainage way on the north end near the clinic parking lot that drains water to the north, and then in the middle there's like a kickball backstop or something like that. So it looks like it was intended to function the way Scott's describing making it function. So I think it probably just needs improved grading and should be in business.
Yeah, in general, the park has really been underutilized. I mean, there's really nothing ever goes on in there because there's really nothing there, and I think it's maybe a park worth examining at some point, but.
Well, and I see activity going on there. We've got a basketball court there, and there's activities going on there. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's my grocery store route, so I do see a lot of kids on the play equipment. And I appreciate Christopher's input. That's kind of the answer I'm looking for. It's just that I'm glad to know that I would just like to make sure we're not just shoving a problem off onto some other property, or that there isn't something else we should do besides grading. If it's a simple answer, then that's great.
Okay, so to keep moving here, Nine Springs Golf Course. And the parking lot resurfacing. Now that, if you recall, was the source of funding for the rec folks. But I tell you, our recreation program fees and our park shelter rental fees are going good. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to make whole this CIP. Now, we didn't have any work scheduled for 2021, but we were going to use the funds that we generated in 2021 to do work in 2022. In 2022, if you look at page 230, that is going to be the main, is going to be the big parking lot in front of the main shelter at McKee. What they did do this year is they were able to do a little repair on the, the main entrance that goes into Kids Crossing, but then veers off into this parking lot. They're able to do a little bit of a repair there this last year, so that's going to go good. But we're hoping that, like I say, if we can replenish those dollars, we'd be able to do that parking lot in 2022. Tennis courts, we've got nothing. Large park shelter renovations, that got pushed back to 2024 last time. The recreational circuit, Dunn's Marsh. Hopefully we'll begin to start planning and thinking about this project this year, because it does fall within the 5-year for the CIP. Phase 1 hub. Phase 2 hub for next year.
Why isn't there nothing, why is there nothing in phase 1 before phase 2?
What are you talking about, Patrick?
Was it just,
Are you talking what?
well, doesn't phase 1 become before phase 2?
Phase 1, which is the hub phase 1, which is the north side of Traceway, that's this year.
Okay.
And then phase 2,
Okay, they are in order, all right.
yep, is the south side. Then we also have the teen center in 2022. And then Joran kind of provided I put in your packet the spreadsheet.
Is
of
that,
what-
is, the Northwest Teen Center, is that the one that was proposed to buy a building
Yep,
on the
yep,
east side of Verona
yep.
Road?
Yep, yep.
Isn't that not, is this a proposal to put it into the budget for next year? And this is the same that was taken out of the budget or not approved in last year to be in this year's budget?
Well, this,
Is this a,
I think what they're doing this
Also,
year is,
yeah.
they're actually doing a study this year
Okay.
for like 40, I believe it was 40,000 if I recall correctly. But then the project is scheduled for 2022.
right, okay, in one of the lines in the middle there, it does say, the council proposed amendment for a community engagement study.
Yep,
Doesn't have a dollar figure there, but there's nothing listed in 2021 in the expenditure table down below.
yeah, yep, $40,000 it looks like.
Okay, where do you see that?
Page 239.
239?
No, that's, yeah,
Two. Oh, okay, it's in that one.
that's the operating budget portion of it. The top part is the construction portion of it.
Okay. Okay, I see a number.
And that's really all there is. So if there isn't any discussion, we'll take a motion, and
I have a
that's what I'll
point
submit.
to make on something, and I don't think that anything precludes us from making comments about the future years here, even though we're approving 2022. In the spreadsheet there, let's see here, well, the page on McGaw Park, page 242, I do see out there in year 2024, $10,000 allocated for new volleyball posts. And I want to point out to you, Scott, that you and I stood right there on site and we discussed those volleyball posts, and there's nothing wrong with those volleyball posts. So I'm hoping before that 2024 comes up in 2023, that item is removed from there.
You can make a motion, right? You can make a motion right now and we'll
Okay,
vote on it.
I'll make a motion right now. I'll start working on this thing right now. There is nothing wrong with those posts, and you and I looked at them standing right there, and I think I proved my point, so I make a motion to remove the 10,000 for the new volleyball posts, and if this doesn't pass now, I'll be right back on it next year.
Is there,
Pat, can I ask I remember us talking about this last year and that I went and looked at the volleyball posts as well, and I couldn't really tell the shape that they were in. I thought you had mentioned that this is something that's just recommended from a maintenance standpoint to ensure that they remain usable, but am I misremembering, or what's your opinion on the volleyball?
well,
posts?
I don't think I got a second on that, did
We're
we?
just discussing.
Did someone second that?
Oh, you want a second before discussion?
yeah, second for discussion, yeah.
Anybody want a second for
Well,
discussion?
didn't you make a motion to?
I made a motion, yes, to remove.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay,
Very good.
discussion on the motion then.
And you know, as I recollect, Sarah, I think they might be boating in a little bit.
Yes,
A
little, yes.
And in fairness, we do have 2 sets of sand volleyball courts there. You know, we have one. You know, I wouldn't be adverse to removing it. You know, it's just something that we've identified. You know, it's really, like I say, we do have 1 set of volleyball posts there.
Well, there's actually 2 that are in sand, and then there are 2, and those 2 have nets. And they were very, very active last year with the COVID thing coming out. There was 2 different groups that I saw every evening of the week. Some were on some evenings, some were on the other, and sometimes there was, you know, both courts were in use. They were very busy. The other 2 courts have been left abandoned really to grass. They do not have nets on, which means nobody can use them, but I also didn't see people waiting to use them.
Patrick, no disrespect, but I'm agreeing with you. So I think
I'm
just
clarifying in case, you know.
I just roll with the flow a little bit. So I am confirming that we could certainly take that second set of volleyball posts out of there. Yeah.
Are you volunteering to withdraw that?
I'm providing the staff comments.
Yes, thank you for the staff comments,
You're-
Scott. That is exactly what I was hoping for. And I guess I do see
You're welcome.
they're 2024, so we have years out to review these. And if they're bowing a little now, I do like the idea of planning that potentially they bow further. That, like Scott already mentioned, the goal of this conversation is to really feel confident of what we're pursuing in 2022. So for 2024, I appreciate the conversation, but I don't think it's necessarily needed to pull them out at this time.
I encourage anyone to walk up to those posts and give them a good solid kick. They're not going to move. They're not falling inwards, and they do not affect the play because they are perfectly straight up between the 2 sides where the players are. Perfectly straight up.
Any other discussion? Chris?
And maybe this is a question as much as it is a comment, but it seems like it may be easier to find a new home for that $10,000 in 4 years if it's already there than it would be to discover, hey, we need new posts. We need to find 10 grand to replace the posts. So in that regard, I think it might be safer to just, you know, leave it how it is, kick the can down the road and address it when we get to it. And like Sarah said, focus on 2022 right now and just know that, you know, we can discuss the posts when that time is near.
You don't think it's a big enough item to really fuss over? I think
I am fussing over it.
placeholders certainly.
There is another point that I want to make right here. Back on the earlier page from McGaw Park, this is listed 2024 new volleyball post $10,000 levy, which means property tax levy. I do not like that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor, so whether we want to delete that or not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion did fail. All right. Is that it?
Now I think if we can take a motion to approve as proposed, that'd be,
No, there is a McKee also here. In 2022, 15,000 for new fence around the electrical enclosure. Is that really gonna cost 15,000 to put up a new wood fence around that? $15,000?
let me, where are you?
It's on the spreadsheet. It's probably the last page altogether here. Yeah,
What page you got there?
well, let's see now. Okay, it's page 243.
243. I know it's been,
It's not in great shape, but 15,000,
in 2020.
yes, in 2022.
Now, why didn't I mention that when we,
What park is this in?
McKee,
yeah,
in the spreadsheet page.
but I didn't, I should have mentioned that in, I might have missed that in,
It's already in a box. Do we need a fence around it?
It has a fence around it. This is
It's a
the
wood-
one,
yeah.
it's to the northeast of the McKee shelter. It's not in great shape, but, you know, it's not like falling down, and it's certainly not a critical thing.
yeah, I
All it's
did,
meant to do is to screen the transformer and the switching enclosure that's in there and just kind of keep people out of it.
well, and what I should have, I didn't include on page 224, that's the actual CIP page for McKee Farms Park. I should have included that $15,000 and 20 for upcoming projects in 2021, but I didn't do that. So that's a good catch, Patrick. Yes, we're thinking that that's maybe how much it's going to cost. If it doesn't cost that much, then it doesn't.
This has also been on the list for a very long
Oh,
time.
yeah,
right? So,
it
I
has.
mean,
It has.
it could be 2032 and wouldn't make any difference to anybody.
Well, I disagree. There's people that complain about it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
paint it then. Spray paint it, not graffiti type. I'm more objecting to the money.
Well, and again, if it
Certainly
doesn't,
not critical that, you know, it's,
if it doesn't cost 15, then it doesn't cost 15. We just want to make sure that we've got enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of these prices are all subject to change anyway.
I think.
But yeah, I know what you're coming from.
It seems to me that the gate, which is facing the shelter, may be the worst of it. I'd have to really walk around and examine it really closely. I know that the push buttons to turn on the ice skating rink are mounted on the south side of the wall. Not a big deal, but I think it's just the gates going into it that are kind of hanging a little bit. So could be just, you know, replace new gates and paint the thing would be good enough.
Yeah, we're recommending that we
Well-
that we fix it and do it right and get it done.
We don't have a motion or anything on this, just,
Noted, I guess, yeah.
you want to just note it and see if you can do something cheaper?
Well, we'll get it for as inexpensively as we can, that's for sure.
Repair even is a possibility?
I don't think
Take
it's,
a look at it, you know, take
Yeah.
a closer look. See if the rest of it is solid, and just the gates are hanging off the hinges.
sounds good,
Okay,
sounds good.
good enough.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion, Mark.
Okay. Need a motion and a second on the CIP plan.
I make a motion to approve the CIP plan as proposed by Scott.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Voting on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Communications.
Communication, yep. The pickleball courts, as you all may be aware, the council did approve the base bid, but not alternate number one. And as Patrick alluded to, they're moving dirt out there already, so that project's underway. I did want to report too that the Park Rec redistricting, or the ordinance to allow for smaller setbacks was approved by the council.
Oh, wait, before you go on to that one, I didn't know what you were starting to talk about there. The pickleball courts, the resolution right there on page 245. I
Yeah,
think,
it's a shame that you're not doing the paths at least.
well, they are, because the council 6-2 approved the pickleball courts and the east-west path,
Yeah.
but not the parking lot, and there may have been another path or something there that was also not included. The resolution 53-21 on page 245, it reads a little odd. There may have been another version that something was deleted out of it, but the way this reads anyway, whereas the staff is recommending, and the staff is recommending alternate bid one, and a contingency. Now be it hereby resolved, the council approves $298,000 plus 10%. So it sort of reads that the alternate one, which was the parking lot, is part of what was approved, and this thing is signed, so this is a final version.
But didn't the parking lot include the paths too?
The east-west path was approved along with the pickleball courts. The parking lot may have had some other paths. That other, somewhat obsolete plan, I don't want to go back to it, may have had some more detail, but not real important. It's just,
Sarah, do you remember what the council approved on the
Yeah,
pickleball court?
Yeah,
Patrick and Scott are stating it correctly, that yes, the pickleball courts were approved, the parking lot was not. The path to access the pickleball courts was also approved. So I
And the
guess I
path
get what
was
you're saying,
approved, or
Patrick, that
was
it's
that deleted?
listed a little funky, but I don't.
I got, here, I worked my way back to it, page 223, although this is not the latest one that the council saw, like Chris said, it may have been a concept one a little bit earlier. I guess there's a north-south path, and, well, other paths that take off to the northwest. I don't know if those are included or not.
no, the only thing that's included
Just that
is,
straight east-west path right across the middle.
yeah,
And the pickleball courts.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Even the version of this, the updated version of this layout right here that the council really saw, this is not the correct one, is not what they are building right now, because I've seen what they're doing out there, and they're not working on the right plan, or somebody made a change that the council doesn't know about.
I don't know if you can tell right now, they're moving dirt.
Oh,
I just walked over there too, that I would think Scott's update hit it
Yeah.
exactly right. The parking lot was not approved by council.
I see a couple of things in there that they have built already that were not on that plan, so I don't know where those came from, those features.
Okay. Then I wanted to give,
So the resolution on the end there, that is, somehow or other, that is correctly written, even though it seems a little odd, that the net effect of this resolution is that alternate bid number one is not included, and it's just the $298,694 plus the the, what is it, 10% contingency, not 62,000, but something less than, I think it's 30,000, is what was actually approved.
That's correct.
I don't know why the resolution wasn't like reworded to be accurate, but that's all, I'm making a point, it reads a little odd.
You can report back later and see next
yeah,
meeting, yeah.
right. I also wanted to give a quick update about the community gardens. And the Briarwood Community Gardens, we actually had 8 applicants submitted and potentially nine plots requested. Hugo Jamestown, we had 5 applications submitted. And then 2 others, individuals that expressed interest. We did receive 3 no surveys from the surveys that were sent out from Hugo Jamestown. In Quarry Hill, we received 1 applicant and 4 other potential applicants. And then actually Swan Creek, we were going to have to add 6 new plots at Swan Creek. So I guess from that, I'm seeing that Briarwood and Quarry Hill is a goal in Swan Creek. But my question is, how does the commission feel about the Hugo Jamestown, where we had, 7 respondents that they're interested in having a plot. 5 of them actually filled out the applications, but we did receive three neighbors that said, well, they don't think it's a good idea.
They say why?
I don't recall, Patrick.
Do you have any feeling about were they objecting to the site? And you could fill us in on where the site was selected also.
Well, the site was going to be, if you're familiar with the park, adjacent to left field.
Okay.
In that area between the basketball courts and left field. So it was going to be kind of in the center of the park, not off by the neighbors, with the idea that there's, a playground nearby. They could ferry water over there. It's relatively close to it.
Is that just a field, tall grass right now?
No.
What is there exactly in that spot right now?
Grass.
Lawn? Mowed lawn?
Lawn mowed grass, yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And as I recall, they weren't vehement, no's. They just didn't think it was a good idea, that kind of thing. But in comparison, we had, 7 that said, 5, they submitted the application, and 2 that are looking to submit an application. So I guess I didn't want to.
7 were in favor, 5 have put in 7 or 5 of those 7 have already put in an application, and the other 2 were going to?
I have expressed interest in buying a plot, but have not yet submitted their application.
That sounds favorable.
Yeah, I think so too.
How about the water source? Is that an idea of running a garden hose from the shelter?
I think I think we'll do it similar to what we did with Swan Creek. That we in working with the garden manager, figure out a way to gain access to water.
Well, in Swan Creek, you added a second water meter source.
Well, that was after the first.
Right.
The first year.
That's what I'm getting at is don't make it real expensive. I don't know if it's like 100 feet, 200 feet, something like that. That's garden hose.
Oh, right. And that will rely on the garden manager to be the one that kind of coordinates how that water gets there.
Okay.
And then Briarwood, like 9 at Briarwood. Like I say, Swan Creek, 6 new ones. So, and I think once Quarry Hill and Hugo Jamestown and Briarwood, once they get going, I'm anticipating, they'll be similar to Swan Creek, where we'll gain after every year once people see what's going on there.
I'd like to speak in favor of the Hugo Jamestown. I know you're wondering what we thought of. There's a couple negative comments, but it sounds overall positive, and I agree that with what you're saying, that once it's in for a year, it'd be nice for that neighborhood to have some other positive things going on in the neighborhood itself and in the park. So kudos to those who.
So I think I'll just, it is in communication, so I guess I am hearing that the consensus is that everyone's good with us moving forward with Briarwood, Huger Jamestown, and Corey Hill for
I'd say so.
community gardens.
Yeah,
That sounds perfect.
everybody is nodding.
Okay,
And then I did want to also report, well, and this is part of the staff report, so I'll wait until we get to that. Unless we want to get to it right now.
oh, you're all done,
Ready for staff? Yep.
okay.
Staff,
Any future agenda items?
well, let me, I
Staff reports?
yeah, a couple.
Sorry about that, too anxious.
Well, and I did want to report that we're working with a group to get a couple bluebird houses in Rose Common Park. I wanted to share that with you. We also had y'all know that Austin Koss left. We had 81 applicants for that position.
Wow.
So we're working on sifting through those. And we actually have interviews set up for the park forestry assistant position, which was reinstated this year. So I wanted to give you an update on that.
At this point, for the rec department, I know it's just Chad now. So I would pretty much be sure to assume that Chad is entirely 100% working in the rec office.
He has been since January. January.
Okay. And if there was anything that he was working on of sign repair, that's taken over by the parks crew then?
Chad did make a commitment that he'd, work to get the signs ready for installation, but I think it's going to be something that Jordan's going to probably have to.
Right. With
pick up for
Austin
him.
leaving, he's got to be in the rec office.
Oh, absolutely.
So there were some that were like under construction or under repair or so.
Yep.
Okay.
That it?
That's all I got.
All right. Are there any future agenda items you want to share with us?
Oh, not that I can think of, but I'm sure there'll be some.
Okay. And announcements is the next two park commission meetings are May 6th and June 3rd.
I want to comment on something. This seems like the right place for it. I want to, at least personally, thank Alder Sarah Schroeder for her service to the city for the last 2 years. As both an alder representing my District 3, I'm one of the constituents in District 3, and also for your service on the Park Commission and the other various committees that you've been on. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, you beat me to it, Patrick. Thank you, Sarah. We're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Well, and maybe they won't appoint somebody in May, so then you'll be able to come back in May, Sarah.
You guys are my favorite commission. I will, yes.
All right.
Thank you, Patrick.
We need a motion to adjourn. In a second.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
I'll call it 10:19.
We are adjourned.